Good morning. I'm going to call the Washoe County Board of County Commissioners meeting for May 21st, 2019 to order. And we will start with a salute to the flag. Miss Wendy DeMonte, formerly known as Miss Wendy Winus, yeah, of whom I met many years ago. Would you lead us today, ma'am?
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, ma'am. Madam Clerk, and I didn't mean to do the maiden name throwback.
Oh, I love it. It's my middle name.
So that's a testament to how long we've been acquainted, been friends. Item number 2, Madam Clerk, roll call.
Good morning, Mr. Chair.
morning.
Von Hartung, Chair.
Present?
I believe we have Vice Chair Bob Lucy on the phone.
Here.
Thank you. Marcia Burke Bigler is not in her seat at the moment.
She is here, so we'll move on, Madam Clerk.
Thank you. We'll mark her present when she arrives. Kitty Jung,
Present.
Jean Herrmann,
Here.
County Manager Don Slaughter,
Present.
Assistant District Attorney Paul Liparelli.
Here.
I'm Nancy Parent, County Clerk. You have a quorum, Mr. Chair.
Okay, and then when Commissioner Burke Bigler arrives, would you please just mark her as present? Madam Clerk, public comment.
Mr. Chair, I'll read public comment.
Oh, I'm sorry. Mr.
Introduction.
Manager.
It's item 3. This is comment, public comment. Comment heard under the item is limited to 3 minutes per person and may pertain, 3 minutes per person may pertain to matters both on and off the commission agenda. The commission will also hear public comment during individual action items with comment limited 3 minutes per person, and comments should be made to the commission as a whole.
Madam Clerk.
First up is Mr. Jerry Mifsud, followed by Mr. Tim Stoffel.
Welcome, sir.
Just set it down, face up to the right of the microphone, the podium there.
Mr. Mifsud, welcome.
Just to the right of the podium where the microphone is. Put it down on the table. There you go. They'll focus it for you.
Get that any clearer?
They'll work on it from the back of the room.
There we go.
Okay?
Perfect. Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Jerry Mifsud. I'm 74 years young, and what a time I'm having working in the community of Reno. Not only have I listened to all the seniors in my neighborhood, I single-handedly have gotten 6 different street changes and safeguards for my fellow seniors against speeding cars and crime. So I have the backing of fellow seniors. Now we want to entertain ourselves and invite the rest of the community. I usually expect a bigger crowd here, so it's generally 60% seniors. And on this day, in July 14th, us seniors are throwing a park, excuse me, a party in Paradise Park. I have the backing of the City Council, their assistance and donations. And so far from the commissioners, I've had the generosity of Commissioner Jung, Kitty Jung, who gave me $500 for the event. Actually, didn't give it to me. My fiscal agent is the Sierra Arts Foundation. So I'm nonprofit. What I'm looking for, and the way I convinced the City Council, at first they just didn't have discretionary funds. And then I sent out emails in the Word saying, it's not just business, this is personal. This is for us seniors. This is the last stage of our life. We're going to celebrate it on that day. And so when I said it's personal, then the money started to flow in from the city council and the mayor included. On this day, every song is going to be a music memory. I got all the bands lined up. I got the food lined up, food trucks. The event, which will be in Paradise Park parking lot, the whole event will be surrounded by different senior services and organizations, so seniors can have options and make the best choices in their independent life. And I hope to empower the seniors on that day in their proactive independence to go out and seek the senior that's falling through the cracks. Those are our brothers and sisters. They're not just seniors, they're elders, they're wise people. They all have a story and they deserve to be protected. I say kids and seniors are valuable and vulnerable. So we have to look at both opposite ends of the spectrum. Those kids and seniors are going to be on that stage singing "We Are the World," and I rewrote a chorus in there saying "We Are the Seniors." I didn't expect, it's a little startled, rude awakening becoming a senior. I ask for your support and consideration, either personal or professional, to be able to follow the lead of Commissioner Jung and throw us a grant. No, not like a formal grant.
Thank you, Mr. Mifsud.
Ulysses has grant.
Mr. Mifsud,
Thank you so much for your time.
Noble cause.
Have a great day.
Thank you. Madam Clerk.
Next, we have Mr. Tim Stoffel, followed by Mr. Vance Rushing.
Mr. Mifsud, please.
Yes.
Mr. Stoffel, thank you for your patience.
Tim Stoffel, 10515 Trail Drive, Reno, Nevada. As most of you know, a bill was recently ramrodded through our legislature, SB 143, no puns intended on the use of the term ramrodded, a bill which tries to repair a problem with ballot question 1 from 2016 having to do with background checks and firearms. This proposal was struck down because it was unenforceable the way it was written. So the legislature decided that it needed to make a fix and did the unprecedented thing of trying to get this, through the legislature in 5 days. In all the years I've lived in Nevada, I have never seen anything done like this by our legislature. This bill is very poorly written. It's not going to solve the problems it's intended to solve, and it's unenforceable. As a result of this, a lot of the counties in the state their sheriffs have decided not to try to enforce this law because they feel that it's against the rights and against the Constitution, against the Second Amendment. It's my understanding that there's a move afoot among this commission to recommend to their sheriff to do the same thing here because they have not taken a stand against this bill. And I would like to encourage this commission to ask the sheriff to oppose SB 143. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Madam Clerk.
Mr. Vance Rushing, followed by Ms. Tammy Holtstill.
Mr. Rushing, welcome.
Thank you. Good morning. The gentleman just preceded me talked about legislation that is in Carson City concerning firearms. I'm here to address every single one of those laws and their origins, or at least their roots. I have here a book. If the camera, there you go. This book contains all the gun laws, as it says, from Germany, enacted between 1928 and 1938. Now, we all know who was in charge, at least from 1933 to 1938, and what they did. Okay? I have read every single one of the laws down in Carson City that are being proposed. Every single one of them reads like the laws from Germany. And by the way, those laws are still in place. They're still being enforced. Okay? I wore the uniform of the United States Navy from 1973 to 1993 and said all enemies, foreign and domestic. To learn who my domestic enemies were going to be, I had to learn who my foreign enemies were, and their behavior. And one of them was mass civilian disarmament. And that's what this is all leading to. People talk about crime. All right? There is a town called Kennesaw, Georgia. It's about 35 miles from Atlanta. They have a gun ownership requirement ordinance that was put in place in 1982. Is Kennesaw a slaughterhouse? They've grown from 5,200 to 35,000, or around 35,000. And I have some paper printouts here that shows their crime stats, shows Chicago's crime stats, shows Reno's crime stats. And these are available on the net for anybody who wants them. Suffice to say, from 2008, January 2008 to December of 2013, Kennesaw had no murders. Let that sink in. Chicago, on the other hand, they have an average of, I don't know, according to the paperwork I've got, in about 100 murders every 3 to 4 months. Now, you folks want results. Which way should you go? I say Second Amendment sanctuary county status. Join the other counties, join Douglas, and I spoke down there too on the same thing.
Thank you, sir. Madam Clerk.
Ms. Tammy Holtstill, followed by Mr. Pee Wee Henson.
Welcome back, Ms. Holst.
Overhead, please. Good morning, Tammy Holtstill, Lemon Valley Swan Lake Recovery Committee for the record. What you see before you, you also got on a piece of paper. This is a comprehensive, holistic idea or plan for Lemon Valley. You will have a copy of it. It's kind of interesting, after the April 29th meeting, as you saw, I had a lot of residents here. They took the time to be here so that you could understand, even though I am one voice, I have a lot of people that I'm speaking for at the current moment because they can't be here like I can. Not that I want to be, but I am. So, in this comprehensive plan, it's kind of interesting that on Thursday, there's going to be a meeting with Western Regional Water and Tumwa, and you're talking about tripping or pumping water to trick. But yet, it's going to be interesting to see all of a sudden how this is being involved or evolving, considering the fact that it's so spontaneous. You know, is it due to the fact that you don't want to make that sewer plant A+? That sewer plant needs to be A+, and the Lemon Valley sewer plant needs to go. That sewer plant that is in the 100-year floodplain that is costing $1.5 million to protect needs to go away. Just in time is costing a lot of money, not only to Washoe County, but Washoe County taxpayers and to the citizens doing just in time. It's time to do your fiduciary responsibility and be progressive, not regressive, not reactionary, but look at the whole and start doing a whole plan. Put a lot of time and effort into this. I am speaking on this on the 19th at the Planning Commission. I have been asked to for the city of Reno, and I would hope that everybody else would like to get on board and see about doing something to fix this situation. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Clerk.
Mr. Pee Wee Henson, followed by Mr. Sam Dene.
Mr. Henson, welcome back.
Yeah, it's been a while, huh? Pee Wee Henson, 3929 Butte Court, Reno, Cold Springs. Well, I'm gonna be brief, but I'm gonna use up all of the 3 minutes. And I'm right off the bat, in the conversation we've had earlier this year, Kitty Jung said she has a carry permit. Bob Lucy hunts, you hunt, you have a carry permit. Commissioner Herrmann, she doesn't brag on herself. So I'll start there. I'm here to urge you guys to make Washoe County a Second Amendment sanctuary. Because if you allow some entity to come in and disarm us, the bad things that happen will be on you. So think about it. I'm not about to give up my gun rights. And I know a lot of people that aren't as well. So you guys decide. So I got 2 minutes. I'm gonna stand here and stare you down. Something wrong with my eyes, Ms. Jung? Make it happen.
Thank you, sir. Madam Clerk.
Mr. Sam Dene, followed by Mr. Ryan McKinney.
Same DNA, Dene, the guard angel against especially media wacko freak coward traitors of Reno and government bungling. And Tammy was here a few minutes ago talking about the way this Lemon Valley flooding scheme has evolved. And I warned in the beginning, and I'm not saying God started that flood just to benefit Tahoe Reno Industrial Complex, but has now, I warned about the fact that that you and I, the citizens, are paying $100 million for a pipeline from somewhere in Reno over to the Tahoe Reno Industrial Complex with all of those billionaires over there, and we're paying for a $100 million pipe, and then on top of that, we're gonna send them the water. I mean, how? This is the stuff, Mr. Trump, Mr. President Trump, release. I know you're listening and watching, you're plagiarizing my YouTubes with everything from your vocabulary to your choreography, but you're never, but I've got more spunk and gumption and moxie in my baby fingers than you've got in your whole body, and a lot better hair. And Mr. Trump, release my YouTubes. One of the commissioners thought that somebody was hiding them, and maybe they are. I don't really know. She brought that up because they should be viral. This one right here should be viral. Everybody should know what they're doing. $100 million for a pipeline over there to Don Roger Norman and Lance Gilman, who've already gotten dozens of millions of dollars of our taxes. And I mean, you see the deers in the headlights out there. They're saying, who is that guy? Who is that guy up there? Well, I'm an Air Force Academy graduate. I've flew fighters and bombers for 25 years defending our nation. I've got a little bit of background, but thanks to the, I don't have enough adjectives, but thanks to the corrupt, mendacious, perverted, cowardly, sleazy, yellow-bellied, low-livered media wacko freaks here, especially the Reno Gazette and their three Sams. Pretty good writers, but they just don't know how to write the truth. Same thing with that guy with the same similar last name of mine. 4 reporters, and they all have my same name. What is going on? Isn't that the craziest thing you ever heard of? And it's true. Take a look at your next newspaper. No, forget it. Nobody ever buys the newspaper. As I close out, I'm just trying to remind you people, there's also involved with this Lemon Valley flooding, the other disaster taking place right now is the devastation of hundreds of citizens' homes over in Wild Creek by a $200 million boondoggle that you, as a Billy Pulpit, can say, don't do it.
Thank you, Mr. Dene.
You're welcome, and thank you for thanking me.
Mr. Ryan McKinney, followed by Ms. Kathy Brandhorst.
Mr. McKinney, do you need some assistance coming down, sir? Mr. Smith, would you help him? Mr. McKinney, this way. Thank you. There you are. Yes, it's a little difficult to navigate. Make your way down. Mr. McKinney, welcome. We only usually see you at the RTC meetings.
Yeah.
Welcome.
Okay. Ryan McKinney, 1240 Bonray. First this morning, your Cal Fire, the fire chief, he said that PG&E was not responsible, and earlier this week, Cal Fire came out with a report that nails PG&E for the campfire. They've been credited saying that's legible, so your fire chief is not getting the proper information, because they did say earlier this week that Cal Fire going to nail PG&E further responsibility to campfire. Next, Lemon Valley. you guys are gonna have a disaster. How you guys wanna do? You wanna have neighbors lawsuits, or you wanna do it the right way of start, like first with the dump instead? Let's make it a full dump instead of a transfer station. You have the land right now, let's make it a full dump. 2, the water to sewage. Let's, instead of doing piecemeal of getting the next thing up, clearance rise up, let's make it, let's do it right the first time of getting the sewer system for the next 15, 20 years. That way people, the water, we can start pumping the water out of Swan Lake. Do it the easy way. Because if you guys don't start doing it the easy way in Swan Lake, you guys will probably be hit very shortly with lawsuits from those people in that area, because they're going to start wising up, and, they're going to come after you guys because you guys didn't do right the first time of just making it nice and easy. Just, it is the affluent that's coming in there. It's not the storm water, not the flood, not everything that's been said. Ms. Tammy Holtstetter has been saying. It's been the affluent, it's been the pumping that's been being pumped into the storm drain area, the storm water over the last 2 years with the storms, everything of our winter. The point now, it needs to be done right. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McKinney.
And Ms. Brandhorst, I believe, has left the room.
No, she's
Is she here?
Yes.
Oh, okay. She's hiding in the back.
making her way down.
Sorry, Ms. Brandhorst.
Ms. Brandhorst, welcome back.
Thank you. My name is Kathy Brandhorst, and I am the United States President, too. I don't know if I've been saying this morning either, but that has not changed at all. I've been reelected again. Yes, I just wanted to let you know we had a third floor shooting, but this has been quite a while ago. But I wanted to bring it up because they moved out of this building and they moved into a different building so that they would feel safer. And I'm talking about the accounting department. The accounting department was, as you know, they all were shot down on the third floor in this building. And they did not have a chance, so they were feeling safe over at the other building now, but they are not feeling safe so far today. They are complaining that there's fewer of them now. So I just wanted to bring that back up again. And the gun control is not really being controlled at all. There's a lot of guns being stolen from thrift stores, shops, that bring in the guns to sell. And they are stolen from the U.S. military, but I guess they don't know these guns are stolen so that they could be resold by people who are not, well, they don't have the right to sell them in the first place because they don't have the business license to do it. So that's really needs to be brought under control, is the gun control there. And also Winchester Mystery House, they are complaining that a lot of guns have been stolen from the house and they have not been recovered. And I think you all know who you are. The gun, you steal guns, you steal, other property like the bullets that need to go with the guns. And that costs a lot of money. It's not just $1 or $2. It costs millions of dollars when you steal guns. And when you use them uncontrollable, what do I mean by that? You use it in the public. You use it not among yourselves. It's destructing police, sheriffs, shooting them down because you were stopped by a police officer. You were stopped by a sheriff in the purpose of a murder scene. And then you turn around and you shoot them down.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, that concludes the folks that we had signed in this morning, but I wanted to put on record an email that I received yesterday. I believe you guys received a copy of it. It was from Ms. Donna Capalla regarding a Lemon Valley update, and I will put that on the record of today's meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Okay, I will close public comment, seeing no one else signed in wishing to speak. Mr. Manager, item number 4.
Item 4 is Commissioner, County Manager's announcements, reports, and updates to include boards and commission updates, requests for information, or topics for future agendas.
Okay. Commissioners, I have no one signed in. Does anyone have anything this morning? Okay, Mr. Manager.
Mr. Chair, I do have 3 updates that I wanted to provide that we've talked about in the past. First, CAB program update. On May 10th, Assistant County Manager Dave Solero met with 3 members of our CAB programs, one from North Valleys CAB, one from Warm Springs CAB, and one from the West Truckee Meadows Verdi CAB. And out of that meeting, a pilot program will be started with those 3 CABs to include one non-development topic chosen by the chair of the CAB and arranged by Washoe County staff for each of their meetings to determine if that approach will meet the needs of the community. So this will be revisited in 6 months with the same individuals to determine effectiveness as a sort of a move towards increasing their agendas. We also launched a flash vote. It's a survey tool that we use on Monday to gather additional information from our community about our CABs. Related to Quartz Lane, noticing of that's required by county code has been completed. And on May 20th, work began with the assistance of the Washoe County Sheriff's Office work crews to clean up the site on Quartz Lane. The initial work will clean up the dumped garbage, and after that cleanup, the vehicles will be removed by a tow company. Work should be completed by the end of May, and the Sheriff's Office has committed to patrolling that area to help avoid further dumping. And then finally, related to speeding and speed assessment tools, Washoe County has adopted the Washoe County Development Code, Manual of Uniform Transportation Control Devices, and the Institute of Transportation Engineers as a standard for consistent traffic design in Washoe County. And in response to requests we have for modifications to the standards from the community, staff is working with a local professional traffic engineer to develop a process that will allow Washoe County to implement potential modifications or changes related to traffic that are outside of those current standards. This work will be the basis for a potential policy change that will come before the board in August of this year. And additionally, it's expected that the policy change would result in the development of a prioritized list of potential projects that will be considered for change over the next year.
Okay. Commissioners, I see no one signed in. Does anyone have anything? So I just have one thing. Mr. Solero, would you get back to me with the status of the request for changing out the light pole on Pyramid Highway? I know we started to initiate that with NV Energy, and I'm just wondering where we are on that. It's still sitting out there. It's still damaged. It's still kind of kinked. And then I'd still like to hear, and I think you're going to bring something back on stop signs, especially on Silent Sparrow and several other places that we've had some issues. Commissioners, anything? Commissioner Lucy, do you have anything?
He's reporting to me that he's been disconnected.
He's been disconnected.
Yeah, so we need to call Commissioner Lucy back. I think they're working on that.
Okay. Give us a moment.
Hello?
Commissioner Lucy.
Yes, sorry.
It's okay. We're on item number 4 at Commissioners and County Managers announcements. Do you have any items, sir?
No, I have nothing to add. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we will close item number 4. Item number 5, Mr. Manager, proclamations.
Item 5 are our proclamations. Today we have 2 of those. The first is item 5A1, and this is proclaiming May 19th, 2019 through May 25, 2019 as National Public Works Week. And I believe Commissioner Jung is making her way to the podium to
So we
read
have
this
a whole
proclamation.
bunch of people. I think you guys are all here for National Public Works. Isn't that correct? Or do you just dress in those vests so that people know that you're in the room?
Safety first.
Safety first. Good. Good, good. Okay.
Make sure you tell all your parents and friends, hi, I'll get you.
Make your way down. Try to make your way to the,
Mr. Chairman, are you ready?
anytime you are, Commissioner Jung, you are, the microphone is yours.
This isn't very loud. Can she turn it up? This microphone needs to be turned up.
Can we?
We needed it during
Can we
public
turn
comment,
the
too.
podium mic up a little bit, staff?
Thank you. Oh, much better. Thank you. Well, hello, women and men. Whereas Washoe County Community Services Department is an integral part of the community and has been providing public works to the benefit of the community and residents since June 15th, 1967. And whereas public works professionals focus on infrastructure, facilities and services that are of vital importance to sustainable and resilient communities and to the public health, high quality of life, and well-being of the people of Washoe County. Whereas these infrastructure, facilities, and services could not be provided without the dedicated efforts of public works professionals who are engineers, managers, and employees from state and local governments and the private sector who are responsible for rebuilding, improving, and protecting our nation's transportation, water supply, water treatment, and solid waste systems, public buildings, and other structures and facilities essential for our citizens. And whereas it is in the public interest for the citizens, civic leaders, and children in Washoe County to gain knowledge of and to maintain a progressive interest and understanding of the importance of public works and public works programs in their respective communities. And whereas the American Public Works Association has celebrated the annual National Public Works Weeks since 1960. And now therefore, the Washoe County Board of Commissioners does hereby proclaim week of May 19th, 2019 through May 25th, 2019 as National Public Works Week and urges all our people to join with representatives of the American Public Works Association and government agencies in activities, events, and ceremonies designed to pay tribute to our public works professionals, engineers, managers, and employees, and to recognize the substantial contributions they make to protecting our national health, safety, and quality of life. Signed this day of May, the 21st of 2019, by our fair chairman, Mr. Von Hartung.
Thank
Are
you,
all of you
Commissioner
going to
Jung.
take your 3 minutes to speak? Because I love a filibuster. Who would
Ben,
like to speak on the behalf?
Ben, can you tell us about bike route signs, perhaps?
Does anybody want to speak?
One in every parking spot. Mr. Crump, welcome.
Thank you. For the record, Eric Crump with Community Services. Chair, Commissioners, I just want to thank you for this proclamation. I continue to be humbled by this team that's behind me. We've invited a few, but there are many more out there that are serving the community that they do day in and day out, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, through some crazy weather, natural disasters that we've seen, and I want to thank the Public Works team for serving this community and their dedication, so thank you for this.
Thank you so much. I couldn't agree more. Anyone else? Mr. Dene, if you, I recognize that you would like to speak, but we're going to let you speak after on item 5 on its entirety. So we have one more.
No, they'll be gone.
We
That's
have.
wrong. They'll be gone. Let's do it.
Mr. Dene,
581.
Mr. Dene, please.
You're wrong.
Mr. Dene,
You're wrong.
it's not the first time. So, anyone else wishing to speak? Would you all please just stay for a moment, because what we're going to do, we're going to make a photograph when we're done of all of you and our EMS. So if you would stay, we will just, it'll only take 3 or 4 minutes, okay? Okay, Commissioner Jung, I'm assuming that that was also in the form of a motion.
Oh, excuse me, yes, it was, and I forgot my ID. Does this go to
Okay.
you? I will move that we approve that.
Thank you. Okay, so I have a motion and a second. Commissioner Burke Bigler, proclamation on emergency medical services. I know we have some folks from REMSA here.
Mr. Chair, as Commissioners Burke Bigler's making away, I'll read that. This is item 5A2, proclaiming May 19 through May 25th, 2019 as Emergency Medical Services Week.
Getting old is for the birds.
Hi, guys. How are you? Good.
Commissioner Burke Bigler, the podium is yours.
Thank you very much. So REMSA are great. They are wonderful to work with, and they are doing wonderful things for our community. And so today, we are doing a proclamation on emergency medical services. So let me read this. Whereas emergency medical services are a vital component of the regional healthcare system, and the members of emergency medical service teams are ready to provide life-saving care to those in need 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And whereas access to quality, innovative emergency care dramatically improves the survival and recovery rate of those who experience sudden illness or injury. And whereas the members of emergency medical services teams engage in thousands of hours of specialized training and continuing education to enhance their life-saving skills. And whereas the emergency medical services system consists of men and women in both the public and private sectors, from emergency physician, emergency nurses, emergency dispatchers, emergency medical technicians, paramedics, firefighters, educators, administrators, volunteers, and others throughout our healthcare system who work together to ensure that that those in need receive the highest level of emergency care. And whereas RIMSA, CareFlight, Reno Fire Department, Sparks Fire Department, and Truckee Meadows Fire District Protection District's commitment to patient care throughout northern Nevada has been an integral factor in our community's safety, security, and success. And whereas the region is proud to have the organization, including RIMSA, CareFlight, Reno Fire Department, Sparks Fire Department, and Truckee Meadows Fire Protection District, operating within the region to ensure the highest quality of patient care and community support. And whereas it is appropriate to recognize the value and the accomplishments of emergency medical services providers by designated Emergency Medical Services Week. Now, therefore, the Washoe County Board of Commissioners does hereby proclaim May 19th through the 25th, 2019 as Emergency Medical Services Week, EMS Strong, Beyond the Call. Dated and signed this day, May 21st, 2019, by our wonderful chair, Mr. Von Hartong. Gentlemen, I'll take my glasses off now because I can see you.
Gentlemen,
Who's going to speak? You can all
who would
speak.
like to represent? Anyone? At least introduce yourselves. We have a small group.
Adam Hines, Director for REMSA. You know, it is our pleasure and privilege to serve the citizens of Washoe County. We have a wonderful and very collaborative relationship with you. We thank you for that support. This week, we have a lot of events planned for our staff to really recognize them and celebrate all of our EMS professionals. So thank you for your support.
Thank you. Gentlemen, anyone else?
Shall we get their pictures since they're here?
So we're gonna allow public comment. I'm assuming, Commissioner Burke Bigler, that was in the form of a motion?
Yes, Mr. Chair, that was a motion to approve this.
Okay. And do I have a second on that? Okay. Gentlemen, have a seat for just a moment. We're going to open up public comment because Mr. Dene would like, I know you're up first. Anyone else, Madam Clerk? Mr. Dene, the podium is yours. Now you can speak on both Public Works and EMS.
That means 6 minutes? Ha! Not. Yes,
long as it comes
should
up
be
to
able to,
free.
but anyway. Sam Dene, the guard angel against government bungling and especially against the media wacko freaks. and what we just had here, and I don't want to make a big deal about it because nobody would even understand what I'm saying, but I signed up to speak on 5A1, and there in capital letters it says for possible action, right there on 5A1. And if you read the rules, you can speak on, a citizen can speak on 4 possible action items. Now, the city manager could have stepped forward with some courage, or the city attorney or the county attorney could have stepped forward with some courage, but nobody spoke up and said, no, that's not right. It's not, I mean, you say, well, you might, that's the way you do it, that's the way we've always done it. No, that's not right. It says 4 possible action. Notwithstanding that, I'm here, normally I'm here being a curmudgeon, and I don't want to be a curmudgeon. I hate being a curmudgeon. Public Works, first of all, is arguably the most important, and emergency services. Public Works is probably the most important issue of business that's what our government's about, besides law enforcement and safety. Right along that is Public Works, and throughout the years, all the fantastic things they've done at Public Works deserves a lot of credit. I do want Public Works to make sure that they don't allow us to have to pay for a $100 million pipeline over to our neighbors over there so the billionaires can scarf off of the citizens. That's part of Public Works. Step in there and say, don't do it. If they want that pipeline, and they shouldn't even have it. It should have an environmental impact study before they could even build such a great big thing. Anyway, Public Works, I've supported them at least as much as anybody there is, if not more, and I do it philanthropically because I don't have all the money access that these people have. Secondly, is the EMS, and I guess it's fortuitous that you broke the rules because I probably wouldn't have spoken on EMS, but I'm glad I am speaking on EMS because emergency services, my REMSA, and my dear daughter was a pioneer with REMSA, the previous REMSA, which was called AIDS Ambulance Service. She was a paramedic with them way back before, well, I hate to say, but, well, in those guys, maybe they even remember back then. Anyway, she was a paramedic for them, and now she's a nurse at the hospital and all that kind of stuff. So anyway, and I'm a card-carrying member right there. How's that for PR for you guys, right there? I forgot what it was. It's cheap. It's like $70, and it gives you ambulance rides, and I've got it from the VA, and I got it from being a retired Air Force fighter bomber pilot, but I've doubled and tripled up because I like these guys. Thank you for, well, I shouldn't say thank you. Anyway, I'm finished.
Thank you, Mr. Dene. Madam Clerk.
That's the only one I had signed. Oh,
we
I
have
see someone came in late for
Chief Moore.
5.
I have signed in
Yes, on 5A2.
on item number 5. Chief.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the record, Charles Moore, Fire Chief, Truckee Meadows Fire District. I just wanted to echo and say what a wonderful working relationship we have with REMSA. And the relationship couldn't be better. We train together, we respond together, we develop protocols. It's the system is working very, very well. And on behalf of National EMS Week, that it's 80% of what we do, and we're happy to be partners in the service to the community. So thank you.
Thank you, Chief. And I, with respect to REMSA, you're a group that I'm glad you're there, but I hope I never have to meet any of you.
Bingo.
So we have a motion and we have a second. Let's go ahead and take care of the vote first. Commissioner Lucy, do you have any comments? Okay.
And Mr. Chair, you had 2 different motions, one on 5A1 by Commissioner Jung and one on 5A2 by Commissioner Burke Bigler.
Correct.
So you want to do 5A1 first?
Either way. Okay, 5A1, National Public Works Week.
I'm putting it in the system now.
Okay, I'm waiting.
You're ready to vote.
Okay, so we have a motion by Commissioner Jung, second by Commissioner Burke Bigler. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
Thank you, Commissioner Lucy. Motion carries unanimously with Commissioner Lucy on the phone. Please affirm your votes. Item 5A2, we have a motion by Commissioner Burke Bigler, and the second, I believe, was Commissioner Jung. Waiting for it. Okay. I thought we were going to take 5 as a whole. Okay. Okay, so we have a motion by Commissioner Burke Bigler, second by Commissioner Jung. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Commissioner Lucy, can I get that cardboard cut out of you, out of your office, so that it looks like you're standing with our photograph?
Absolutely.
Good, okay. All right, so we'll start with Public Works. If you all would come down, and we'll make our way down, and let's have a photograph.
Same on item 6. Oh, I'm sure they can't see you back there.
Can you get all of us? Do we need? Yeah. How do you want us, Josh?
Right there, actually. If I got you guys, try to skid it a little more, maybe a few rows.
Come on,
Okay.
Don't make some of you lay down in front.
All right. Here we go. And in 3, 2, 4.
No, Josh, will you just do one more for me?
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Manager, we are on to item 6.
Item 6 are
As a whole.
donations. Would you have Commissioner read these, or do you want me to go ahead and read these?
Commissioner Jung.
Thank you,
Donations.
Mr. Chairman. Glad to read this for you. I would like to direct the audience to item 6A through item 6C2, and I will call out each of those. So 6A1 is a recommendation to accept cash donations to the Washoe County Regional Animal Services in the amount of $10,496. This will be used for the humane care and treatment of sick and/or injured, stray, abandoned, or at-risk animals. Item 6B1 is we are accepting an out-of-service passenger bus with the estimated value of $3,000 from Amador Stage Lines. This will be used by the Regional Public Safety Training Facility to be used as a training prop. Item 6B2 is a recommendation to accept military surplus equipment with an overall estimated value of $1,569.60. And this will be used by the Sheriff's Department to support special ops and the Community Engagement Office of Washoe County Sheriff's Office. 6C1 is to acknowledge various items donated at an estimated market value of $24,330, as well as cash donations to the Washoe County Human Services Agency for $15,510. And Washoe County Human Services Agency provides cradle to the next dimension care, and we really appreciate that donation. And finally, 6C2, again, the Human Services Agency, much beloved, specifically to the Senior Services Fund to operate our senior centers in the amount of $335.70. We thank the generosity of not only our citizens, but our other government and private partners who allow us to achieve our mission, which is to provide and sustain a safe, secure, and healthy community. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Jung. Okay. So I will also take that as a.
That is a motion.
Okay. I have a motion by Commissioner Jung, second by Commissioner Burke Bigler. Madam Clerk, is there any public comment on this item, item number 6?
I have one person signed in under item number 6, and that is Kathy Brandhorst, and she's signed in on 6A1.
Ms. Brandhorst, would you make your way down, please? Ms. Brandhorst, you are speaking on item 6A1, which is a donation to the Washoe County Regional Animal Services.
Yes. My name is Kathy Brandhorst, and I am the United States President. Injured, sick, stray, abandoned, risk animals have been found smashed in the streets. They are still in the streets and they're smashed. They kept being rolled over, rolled over, rolled over. There was no response from no Washoe County Regional Animal Services at all. These animals never had a chance after they were hit by an automobile, especially at 65 miles per hour. Downtown is only 25 to 30 miles an hour. Oh. I just wanted to tell you this is ridiculous because it's my pet. It has a brain. It speaks. It talks. It tells us who you murderers are. We all know who you murderers are. We know who the bank robbers are. We already know who the department store robbers are. We already know the grocery store robbers. We know who you are. We know why you're here. Why don't you leave my pets alone? They complain they are sliced open for their organs. They are sliced open because they need their mouths being cut out of their faces. Oh my God. They chop their heads. They have suffered enough. You need to leave them alone. Back off. They don't need to suffer anymore. Even in the streets, we can still hear their brains. Help me, help me. I've been abused by these people. I've been abused so badly, I run away. I want to be saved too. I want help. They can't get no help when they're in the middle of the street smashed because you had to run your car 65 miles per hour to make sure that pet is smashed, can't speak anymore, can't be put back together anymore because you had to make sure it's dead. You know, I wanted to tell you too that my animals are also kidnapped. I moved from house to house And I'm already, you know, thinking that I am concerned about the place that I am in now. But I'm not safe in that house at all, not even my pets.
Thank you, Ms. Grandhorst.
That's the only person I had signed in, but I do have some correspondence from Anne Marie Grant on 6B2, which I will place on the record.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so we have a motion, we have a second. Motion by Commissioner Jung, second by Commissioner Burke. Bigler, is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Are there any opposed? Commissioner Lucy, are you on the line?
Yes, aye.
Thank you. Motion carries, I believe, unanimously with Commissioner Lucy being on the phone. Thank you. Mr. Manager, item number 7.
Mr. Chair, item 7 is your consent agenda today, and those are represented in items 7A1 through 7E3. And if I could take liberty, I would like to make recognition on 7B1. This is our Distinguished Budget Presentation Award for fiscal year 2018-19 from the GFOA, Government Finance Officers Association. You will hear from our budget staff later in the item, but I just wanted to make special recognition of that staff: Patsy Buxton, Kari Estrada, Val Gilmore, Brianna McBride, and Lori Cook. Congratulations to them on this award.
Well done. I don't think that this is the first time we've won this award, Mr. Manager. Okay, so hold on, under discussion, Commissioner Jung. Yeah, that would be wonderful, and I can call yours out if you'd give me the. Okay. All right. Okay. So we have a motion by Commissioner Herrmann. Commissioner Burke Bigler, thank you, because you were pointing it, and I thought it was you. And we have a second by Commissioner Burke Bigler. Before we go into motion by Commissioner Burke Bigler, second by Commissioner Herrmann, I can do this. Before we go into any discussion, Madam Clerk, is there anyone signed in on item number 7 wishing to speak?
I see no one, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, so we will close public comment on that. Under discussion, Commissioner Jung.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to point out some donations that myself and 2 fellow commissioners have used their discretionary funds to close out the fiscal year. Item 7B, Bravo 4, is a recommendation to approve Commission District Special Fund Disbursement for Commissioner Jean Herrmann in District 5. She is recommending $1,250 to the Board of Regents' support of Washoe County 4-H livestock leaders for youth members as they pursue their personal goals to learn about the livestock industry, and another $1,250 to the Board of Regents of the University of Nevada to support the Washoe County 4-H horse leaders for youth members as they pursued their goals to learn about the horse industry and affiliated programs or careers. So thank you very much, Commissioner Herrmann, for supporting 4-H here in Washoe County. Item 7B5 is Commissioner Hartung, our chairman, District 4 representative, and he is recommending a dispersal of $17,323, and that will be going to the Sheriff's Office to support the Special Weapons and Tactics Team, also known as SWAT, and this will help them as they upgrade, improve, and develop their already terrific skills at the necessary yet scary organizations such as SWAT. Thank you for that, Mr. Chairman. And then I also am dispersing $14,000 to wrap up the fiscal year, and $500 will go to the Sierra Arts Foundation to support the Senior Citizens Picnic on July 14th. Called Us Seniors Block and Roll Party. And the remainder of my leftover discretionary money in the amount of $13,500 is going to the Sun Valley General Improvement District to support their recreational programs, specifically free swim family days and nights, as well as some park play equipment that was burnt in a special park that's in my district as well. And I want to thank my 2 fellow commissioners for their activism, advocacy, and support of both 4-H and the Sheriff's Office SWAT team. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Jung. Very thorough. I appreciate that, and I appreciate, and I will just bring up, you're giving $500 to Mr. Mifsud, I believe. That's good, wonderful. Okay, so we have a motion and we have a second. Under any more discussion, Commissioner Lucy, do you have anything?
No.
Thank you. Okay, so we have Burke, Bigler, motion, second Herrmann. Seeing no other discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. And thank you, commissioners, for your generous donations for your district funds also. Mr. Manager, we are on item number 8. I will. You have a block? Okay, Commissioner Burke Bigler.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would request that we put into block items number 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. And I make that in the form of a motion.
Okay. Mr. Manager, would you read those and then
I
we'll
will.
call public
Happy to
comment?
do that. Item 8 is a recommendation to approve 2 appointments to the Washoe County Audit Committee of Randy Brown and Matthew Bueller, each to fill a 2-year term beginning June 1, 2019 and ending May 31, 2021, as well as reappointment of Denise Jacobson with a 2-year term beginning August 1, 2019 and ending July 31, 2021. That's 2021. And discussion and possible action with regard to appointment of an alternate commissioner to serve on the audit committee from the Internal Audit Division. So, Mr. Chair, if you want to do that, you will need to have that discussion related to an alternate to the audit committee. Item 9 is a recommendation to approve the refund of surplus assessment funds in the amount of $4,347,866.36 for the 1,090 properties in Special Assessment District 23, Southwest Point Arrow Creek. Item 10 is a recommendation to award Washoe County bid number 3068-19 for orthophotography, oblique imagery, and a 2-foot contour products on behalf of the Washoe County Regional Base Map Committee members, which are Washoe County, the cities of Reno and Sparks, and NV Energy, and the Washoe County Assessor to Pictometry International in the amount of not to exceed $999,765, and authorize the purchasing contracts manager to execute the agreement with Pictometry International, including the purchase of additional mapping products through December 31, 2023. Item 11 is a recommendation to approve an interlocal contract between the Department of Health and Human Services, Division of Health Care Financing and Policy, and the County of Washoe to authorize Human Services Agency to participate in claiming allowable reimbursements covered under Federal Title 19 of the Social Security Act for activities performed for Medicaid Targeted Case Management Services, Adult Day Health Care Direct Services, and Medicaid Administrative Services, retroactive to July 1, 2017 to June 30, 2022, for approximately $4,800,000 for fiscal year 2019 and $5,600,000 for fiscal year 2019, $5,900,000 for fiscal year 2020, $6,100,000 for fiscal year 2021, and $6,100,000 for fiscal year 2022, with a total reimbursement not to exceed $28,500,000 for the term of the contract, and if approved, authorize chair to execute that contract. And item 12 is a recommendation to approve a temporary assistance to needy families emergency assistance program subaward from the state of Nevada, Department of Health and Human Services, Division of Welfare and Supportive Services in the amount of $1,400,087, with no county match, for Washoe County Child Welfare Services, retroactive February 1, 2019 through January 31, 2020. Authorize the Director of Human Services Agency to execute the subgrant award documents and direct the Comptroller's Office to make the necessary budget amendments.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. Mr. Liparelli, on item 8, the last line, it says, and discussion and possible action with regard to appointment of an alternate commissioner to serve on the audit committee from the Internal Audit Division. How would you like us to handle that?
Mr. Chairman, the open meeting law does allow for the appointment of alternates if the law that creates the public body specifically allows for that. I assume, and I haven't checked, that the audit committee is one of those. And so, assuming all those things are correct, you can pick a commissioner or more than one commissioner to serve as an alternate.
Are you saying a county commissioner or
Yes.
the audit commissioners?
County commissioner.
Okay. Okay. All right, so,
Mr. Chair, if I could maybe just by way of explanation.
Yes, please.
The audit committee, which the membership is designated through county code. We recently made changes to the bylaws of the audit committee to expand. That's why we're adding the two citizen members, Mr. Brown and Mr. Bigler being recommended today, as well as recognizing that there was not an alternate, which is for the county commission, which is why that's here before you today as well.
okay. Commissioners, Commissioner Brooke Bigler.
Thank you. Who currently sits on it? Which commissioner currently sits on it?
Welcome.
Good morning. Samantha Pierce, Internal Auditor for Washoe County. Currently, Commissioner Jung is the only member on the committee.
I move to reappoint Commissioner Jung, especially since she's not in the
I
room.
think this is looking for an alternate.
She's the one on it.
Oh, so we need an alternate. Oh, darn it.
So I would suggest, would you like to sit on that? I would suggest Commissioner Herrmann.
Sure.
Okay. Okay, I'll take that in the form of a motion, and I will second that.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so, under, Mr. Luparelli, are we okay with keeping that inside the block vote?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. All right. So I need a motion for items 8, 9, oh, actually, I have a motion, I believe, by Commissioner Burke
Yes.
Bigler. It doesn't show here yet.
It will in a moment. I
Okay.
can't switch screens.
Okay.
Did you want public comment?
I need a second before I can take public comment.
We had a second on the block, it was Commissioner Jung.
Commissioner Jung, okay. Under public comment, Commissioner Herrmann, I have you signed in. Under just discussion.
Right, it's discussion, and just a comment. Since I don't know either of the folks on the committee, I was, sometimes it's nice to know a little bit more about the people, that we're appointing or putting on boards. And so because I don't know either gentleman, and I would appreciate that if this gets voted in, that maybe possibly during this next few months, I get a visit from you so I get to know you.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Chair, I would make note, Mr. Brown was here in the audience, but I believe he had to leave. So
Yes.
he was here prepared to
Yes.
to speak if you
No,
need to.
and
So-
Mr. Jacobson is a Reno, I think he might be retired by now, Reno firefighter. Oh, Denise, oh, I'm sorry, Denise. New glasses. My bad. It is Denise. I'll learn. And then Mr. Brown, yes, I saw Mr. Brown earlier. Okay, so we have a motion, Commissioner Jung, and we have a second, and as an alternate, we are appointing Commissioner Herrmann. You serve on that board, and the alternate would be Commissioner Herrmann. Okay? Okay, Madam Clerk, any public comment?
We do, we have Kathy Brandhurst signed in on agenda item number 8 and 10.
Okay? Ms. Brandhorst. So it's, item 8 is the Audit Committee, and item 10 is the orthography. Orthophotography, rather.
I'm going to be speaking mostly on 10. My
Okay.
name is Kathy Brandhorst, and I am the United States President. The Washoe County, the cities of Sparks and Reno, Nevada Energy. I just wanted to let you know they have been shot down several times trying to remove the wires and poles off properties. In my area where I was on C Street, I know that there has been about 15 men shot down with bullets going through their bodies, and because they were trying to help us out. I had over 50 wires connected to my apartment because they could not afford to pay the water. They could not afford to pay gas and electric. They could not afford to pay internet. They could not afford to pay their television.
Ms. Brandhorst, item number 10 has to do with base mapping.
Oh, well, excuse me, because International comes from Mexico. Yes, we know how many of you are still, here from Mexico. And we know how come you're here. You cannot provide this in Mexico because you don't have the money to do it at all. Mexico is so poor, you can't even afford water.
That has to do with a company.
Yes,
Optometry International.
Nevada Energy is who I am talking about. They don't have a chance when they try to remove the wires and poles out of neighborhoods.
Ms. Brandhorst, it's not.
They are shot down. They don't have the right to, be shot down because they're trying to do their job. And you have $999,765 for your lawsuits because you had to shoot them down. They're going to put all of you in that lawsuit for all the money that you owe them right now, because you didn't want them to remove the poles and wires off the properties. I do pay my bills, but you don't have to connect yourselves to my apartment because you needed to have it paid. Well, I'll tell you another thing too. The contracts that you have with the manager and purchasing, that's to also pay your lawsuits. And you know what? Because some of those people were not dead, but they had to suffer with all the bullets that they had to have in their bodies.
Thank you, Ms. Brandhorst. Madam Clerk, is there anyone else signed in wishing to speak on items 8, 9, 10, 11, or 12?
No, that was it, Mr. Chair.
Okay. We have a motion. We have a motion by Commissioner Burke, Bigler, second by Commissioner Jung. Is there any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Please affirm your votes, and Commissioner Lucy being on the phone. Thank you, Commissioner Lucy. Mr. Manager, item number 13.
Mr. Chair, item 13, this is a public hearing item. This is discussion and possible action on the Washoe County tentative budget, as well as possible changes to the adoption of the final budget for fiscal year 2020, approved changes to the position control for fiscal year 2020 indicated on attachment A, and approve the fee updates indicated on attachment B. This item is capable of being continued to May 28th, 2019 at 10 a.m.
Okay.
And as I introduced earlier, our budget team,
Mr. Manager,
yes.
before we do any discussion or action on this, I am being requested by the District Attorney's Office to read a statement. I'm making a disclosure under the Nevada Ethics and Government Law. My daughter, Alicia Burke Bigler, is an employee of Washoe County Human Services Agency, where she works as an account clerk too. Alicia began her employment in Washoe County in January of 2017. She's not a member of my household, and we are financially independent. Item 13 on the May 21st agenda is a public hearing on the Washoe County tentative budget, and includes the opportunity to vote for or against the budget. I have consulted with county legal counsel about the Nevada ethics laws and other legal decision-making standards, and whether my relationship with my daughter creates any legal duties. On the advice of legal counsel, I am making this disclosure. My potential vote on the budget is not affected by my love and affection for my daughter, nor do I have any financial interest in my daughter's earnings. My daughter's position with Human Services Agency is a classified position. Washoe County's Merit Personnel Ordinance and rules and regulations govern the pay plan, the hiring, supervision, evaluation, and discipline of classified employees. County commissioners are not involved in the administration of these personnel regulations. The eventual approval of a budget funds the salary and benefits of all county employees in their respective job classifications, but there is no unique benefit or detriment to any of the account clerks or other employees of the Human Services Agency, including my daughter, Alicia. After having made this public statement, I intend to participate and vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Burke Bigler. Okay, Mr. Manager.
Mr. Chair.
Oh, yes.
Chair.
Yes, Mr.
I also would need to make a disclosure at this time if I can, for the record.
Yes.
I need to make a disclosure that Megan Lucy is my wife. She's the principal and owner of Lucy Group Limited and Megan Lucy Esquire, through which she provides legal advice and consultation for clients for compensation. Megan has a contract to provide certain services as an independent contractor for the Human Services Agency. On today's agenda item, the public hearing for the Washoe tentative budget, which includes an opportunity to vote for or against the budget. I have consulted with the county legal counsel and about the Nevada ethics laws and other legal decision-making standards, whether my relationship with my wife creates any legal duties. On the advice of legal counsel, I'm making this disclosure. My potential to vote on this is not affected by my love and affection for my wife, although I have any financial interest in my wife's earnings. The approval of the tentative budget today is not an approval of Megan's contract, and I abstained in the past from any consideration of that contract with the Human Services Agency. The eventual approval of the budget may create funds for future contracts, but if Megan's contract is considered for renewal or modification, I will abstain again. After having made this disclosure, I intend to participate and vote on the tentative budget. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Lucy. Okay, Mr. Liparelli, are we okay? Good, thank you. Mr. Manager, please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So today's item is a public hearing on our budget for 2020. And I am going to read through the first few slides introducing the budget, and then budget staff will provide also additional input. So the second slide, this is a slide that you've seen on our process. I think the main thing I want to point out today on this is where we are in the process. On April 23rd, you heard my recommendations to you regarding fiscal year 20 budget. And what I will tell you is that there is really no substantial change of any kind. There's one thing I will point out when we get to that related to our contingency budget. So today, you are styled to adopt our fiscal year 2020 budget, and by June 1st, we must submit the adopted budget to State of Nevada once you have approved that budget. The next slide, some of the highlights. One of the things I want to start with is with current fiscal year 2019 and our stabilization reserve, replenishing that fund to $3 million for the general fund for the year ending 6/30/19. For fiscal year 2020, the highlights, and some of these we are very proud of to be able to report to the community. A net of new positions throughout the organization of 53.62 positions, or FTEs as we call them, and you see the list there of an additional in the general fund of 27.2 FTEs. This includes 6 new deputies, 5 district attorney positions, alternative sentencing, so over 24 positions, 3 of those. Our NAMS campus, we're going to talk a lot about NAMS as we go through this, and the assessor's office. There are others, as you note. There are 27 total in the general fund. In other funds, you will see 26 new positions. 21 of those are for the NAMS campus program. The board has made a priority of our protecting our vulnerable population, and that is represented in this year's annual budget, particularly with the NAMS campus program and that project. There are also additionally 2 positions in the district health, in the health district. We will talk about all of those as we go through. And then, as I mentioned, the only change since you last saw this is in the contingency budget. There's a slight change of an increase of $750,000 to contingency. So originally, we were recommending $5 million, and we have some one-time true-up expenses based on tax revenue. So we were recommending that we place that into, since it's one time, can't guarantee where it's going to go in the future, we put that in contingency for next year, which the contingency only represents 1.84% of our general fund expenditures. So that's a comfortable level. Certainly could be higher if things were a little bit different. The next slide, continuing our recommendations, you'll
Mr. Manager,
see.
before you proceed, let's just put on the record of what, so that when people are watching, an FTE is full-time employee?
You can think of that as a position. That's
Full-time equivalent.
that's an employee.
Right.
Right.
Okay.
And you'll see less we talk about 53.62. That takes into consideration part-time, half-time, quarter-time positions.
I just wanted to make sure.
Yes,
because
thank you for that.
We use lots of acronyms.
We do.
Periodically, and people get a little confused sometimes.
Right. So continuing on the discussion about the NAMS campus for this year, $4.95 million in one-time monies. We have some savings. We had budgeted for our C-Tax refund that we were required to do. We had budgeted that for 18 months. We negotiated that down we had budgeted to do that in 1 year. We negotiated it out to 18 months. So there's some money there that we've been able to use this year, as well as this is our first use of marijuana fund monies, and using $500,000 of that this year to support the $11 million NAMS campus projects. For fiscal year 2020, again, $13.8 million related to NAMS campus. I mentioned the 25 additional FTEs, 4 of those in the general fund, 21 from the indigent fund. We'll be phasing those in over the next year. So they're not all coming in at once, but they will be coming in as we go online with the various portions of that project. There are other operating costs. The total investment for fiscal year, and this is of note, for the NAMS campus, total investment for that project during 2019 and 2020 is $18.83 million. So this recommendation represents the board's commitment to that project, to supporting our vulnerable populations. The next slide, just for reference, and you'll be seeing this over the next year frequently, this is our campus parcel map, the proposal for the NAMS campus. We just wanted to include this for the record in this presentation, since it represents such a major portion of this year's recommended budget.
And Mr. Manager, so just real quickly, because I want to make sure that people know this, not only are we dealing with vulnerable populations, senior services, and families, and et cetera, but we also have an extension of the Crossroads program, which is an attempt to keep people out of the jails and get them onto a sober, productive path.
That's correct.
Which is I mean, it saves money elsewhere. It's an expenditure here, but yet it saves money in our budget elsewhere, in the sheriff's budget especially.
It does. And I would make note, just in addition to Sober 24, when you look at this map, you'll see some of the things that we are programming for families, youth, women, maternity. The very most vulnerable of our communities at times.
And I have to say, and I won't belabor this, again, Ms. Amber Howell, thank you so much for the hard work on this. We've really taken something that was sitting idle in the community, and you've done something phenomenal with it, and I'm excited to see the outcomes in years to come.
Yeah.
Proceed.
So we'll go ahead to the next slide, and this is a summary of our overall budget. Just as a summary, the overall recommended budget for fiscal year 2020, all funds $717 million. General fund represents $363 million, or 51% of that total budget. On the next slide, as we work through the process, we wanted to include this because our departments and the requests that they have made, we were not able to fund everything, but we did do, I think, a pretty good job. Our department requests $9.6 million. We were able to fund $5 million of that. Our departments found $2 million in offsets and reallocations with our net requests of $3 million. And as we mentioned, 27.6 new positions in the general fund for the next year. The next slide, and I won't go through this total list, are all the new positions in the general fund. And as you'll see, it adds up to at the bottom, it adds up to 31.5 new positions. But when we go to the next page, you'll see that there's some trade-offs of a few positions, 3 positions, 3.83 positions actually, so that the net new positions are 27.62 in the general fund. The next slide, again, requests from the departments for our other funds, and we'll talk about what those are, Health District and several other funds. Total requests from departments, 17.1 million. We were able to recommend 14.4 with $12.7 million in offsets and reallocations, making a net request of 1.7 million and 26 new positions. The next slide, 11, outlines those 26 new positions in our other funds. Programs that are funded through the Health District, through Human Services Agency, Justice Courts. Those are listed there with a net of 26 new positions. The next slide, slide 12, Lori Cook, our budget division manager, is going to take off and talk about some of our revenues and sources.
Good afternoon. For the record, Lori Cook, budget manager. I just want to point out there is a typo. I corrected the attachment, but there's a typo under Human Services. The positions that are directly under where it says indigent, those are actually indigent as well. Those are those 21 positions. They're all in indigent for NAMS. So my apologies, I did not update this chart. It was a cut and paste, and so the attachment A is correct. This just should say indigent on those. So for the general fund budget, as previously discussed, April 23rd, as well as going into the final budget, it is the largest fund that have activities. It's the largest appropriation fund for Washoe County. A lot of times we just kind of look at the bottom line. So when we look at 19 adopted budget, we were adopted with a deficit. So that was a situation that took us quite a bit to get through last year to figure out how to close our initial deficit from January of 2018. The year-end estimate, which includes the fiscal year 19 estimate, includes those items identified by Manager Slaughter for fiscal year 19 items that we want to have happen financially. We can see we have that swing. The majority of that swing is coming from those savings and what we budgeted for C-tax repayment based on 12 versus 18 months. So that has been good for us to be able to have that timing help us to be able to support some other really important initiatives. In the final budget, you can see basically revenue equals expense, building some fund balance, $547,000 within the general fund, and an unrestricted ending fund balance of 14.6%, which is still within the board's policy of 10 to 17. This is an updated long-range forecast, 5-year forecast. So if you look at the chart with the green and the red, it looks extremely similar to what you saw on April 23rd. What we've seen with that revenue true up, and one of the reasons why when we see kind of one-time things happening, we don't automatically plow it into ongoing operating expenditures, is that long-term forecast when we look at the structural deficit. So you can see, this picture looks better than it did in April, but if we took that differential that we put in contingency and put it into ongoing operating, you would see basically a deficit earlier and smaller reserves in the out years. So this just shows the trend. Looks like it's manageable in the future years based on forecasts. So again, this is just to re-emphasize general fund balance. So we see we're trending lower, but we are still well within policy and want to support the recommendations for necessary usage and the needed community support resources in the budget.
So when you say our fund balance is going down, let's just make this
Slightly.
clear.
Mm-hmm.
We're
As a
spending,
percentage.
right, we're spending more money than we're taking in.
No. This is as a percentage of total expenditures. So even though we might have, with 1 year, we could have $50 million of ending fund balance, and the next year
Okay.
we could have 51. Our
Yes.
ending fund balance went up, but it could be a smaller percentage of total expenditures.
Total expenditures,
Yeah.
okay.
So moving off the general fund, we do have 15 special revenue funds with $198 million in appropriations. Again, appropriations are expenditures, expenses, and transfers out. The largest, you probably can't tell, but the largest are highlighted. So we have the Health District, the Indigent Fund, and Child Protective Services. Those three combined are 125 of the 198 million. So we see those large expenditure, or those large appropriations in health and sanitation and those welfare functions.
And where do those appropriations come from?
A variety of sources. There are some special revenue funds that receive ad valorem tax, so they receive like senior services, child protective, indigent. There are some that are funded through users, so regional public safety training. Washoe County is a participant. Other restricted revenue fund, for the most part, are grants, donations, and
Grants.
restricted revenues from either the state. E911 is fees. So that's the E911 fee. So, and then some of these, like child protective, indigent, senior, they have a mix of funding. There's donations, there's general fund support, and then there's ad valorem tax.
Okay.
So it depends on the fund.
Okay.
So within the capital and the debt funds, and this is styled to be presented in a similar fashion to what we submit to the state as far as how we're financially set up, fund and functionally. So within the capital funds, we have 4 capital funds, and we technically have 2 debt service funds, so we have 6 funds. For state budget preparation, the state taxation has required us separate out our debt fund between what's supported by property tax rate ad valorem and what is supported by operating, and so that could be sales tax revenue or C-tax, a specific sales tax revenue or C-tax revenue. And so you can see it's those appropriations are 60 million, with the majority of it being capital, almost 47 million being in capital. And interestingly enough, we have 6 proprietary funds as well. And so the enterprise funds, we did talk about it on the 23rd, but as a reminder for anybody listening, enterprise funds are those funds that are treated as businesses. They have revenues coming in, connection fees, user fees, whatever supports them, supports those activities. Internal service funds are those that are specific to Washoe County and support Washoe County activities. Those are all listed above. $96 million in appropriations for those funds. So the 3 enterprise funds are at 23.3 million, and the internal services funds are at 72.5 million. And by far the largest internal service fund is the health benefits fund. So not to be confused with the health district, the health benefits fund is how we run through all the health benefits for active and retired employees. And do you want to take back over from here, John? Okay.
So Sorry, Ms. Chair. So as we've mentioned in the past, in preparing the budget, there's some unknowns, impacts that we're watching for and may require adjustments. We are allowed, because it's a legislative session, we are allowed to make some adjustments later in this year, not too far out. But collective bargaining agreements, our collective bargaining process is underway. The 2019 legislative session, and impacts related to North Valley's closed basins. Those are all we're watching, and as I noted earlier, the contingency portion of the budget, that's one of the things why we wanted to increase that as well, based on these as well as some other unknowns that might be out there. So we just want to make sure we wanted to make note of that. So on the next slide, as I mentioned in the beginning, today we're here recommending approval of our fiscal year 2020 final budget, and upon approval and on or before June 1st, we will provide that final budget for Washoe County to the state. We are happy to answer any questions you might have.
Okay. Commissioners. Commissioner Jung.
I have no questions, and I will make a motion to approve, along with congratulating this all-female hotshot group of finance people. And thank you for all you do and the ability that I know all of you have to answer these questions right off the top of your head. You astound me when I call you or email you with your in-depth and specific knowledge to the penny of how this budget operates, and we surely could not do this without you with a straight face. So I make the motion, and I thank you, and I congratulate you on the honor that I know we get every year, but that doesn't mean that you're going to get it every year just because you had it every year. You have to run a very tight ship, and I believe that your responsibility is some of the highest that we can have here at the county. So I commend you, and I approve. Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chairman.
Hold on just a second, Commissioner Lucy. Can we allow Commissioner
Yes,
Lucy to
absolutely.
proceed?
Go ahead.
Commissioner Lucy, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate the opportunity to make a comment on this. I want to first thank the manager's office and staff and all of the budget team for allowing the change in the budget process this year. I think it was truly a transparent process. I think the way it was conducted and the way we worked through it has been phenomenal. The information provided throughout the process has been fantastic, and I really do enjoy the way we got to the final tentative budget that we are seeing in front of us today. I'm elated to see that the way we're going to move forward in the next year has a balanced approach across all of our departments, and we will be seeing some benefit for everybody, at the same time staying that fiscally conservative yet optimistic about how we move forward. So I just want to make those brief comments and thank the staff for all their work this year. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Lucy. Commissioner Burke Bigler.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I will second Commissioner Jung's motion, and I also will second her congratulations to this wonderful all-female team. I can't imagine that can be said often enough. I'm very, very proud of the work you've done, and I am very pleased with how receptive you were to questions from the commissioners and as this budget was pulled together. And so thank you very much for everything you do.
Okay. Commissioner Herrmann, anything?
I'm not sure I could say anything any better than what they have. Just a big, big thank you. Good job.
Okay, so for me, I cannot begin to express my debt of gratitude, and I agree with Commissioner Jung. I mean, you guys rattle these numbers off. It's impressive. It's mind-boggling to me. I get confused on looking at all the numbers that you guys put together on a daily basis, and you've put it together in a fairly, if we can call that a concise manner for as big as it is. I mean, we're the second largest county in Nevada, and we have a fairly robust budget, but we have been running lean. So, Mr. Manager and staff, we got lots and lots of requests over the years for more employees, and we had to stave those off. Sheriff, NAMS, everyone from the assessor to the clerk. I mean, all departments have needed more help. They've needed, more FTEs, those employees. And it's difficult to run an organization the size of Washoe County in 2019 on about a 2008 budget because of our sales tax, or 2009 budget. It's been very, very difficult. You guys have coalesced everything wonderfully. I appreciate the job, Mr. Manager, of looking equally across the county and trying to determine really where we needed FTEs, and I was thrilled to see that we were able to add 6 new deputies and 5 DA positions. But again, I go back to the NAMS of trying to, how do we keep people out of the system at the regional detention facility? And I think that that's still a goal that we should have, and we should continue to figure out how we can divert people from that system, because it is one of our costliest line items in the budget. Okay, commissioners, anything else? All right. I will call public comment at this point. We have a motion by Commissioner Jung and a second by Commissioner Burke Bigler. Madam Clerk, public comment.
I see no one signed in, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, I will close public comment. We have a motion and we have a second. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously with Commissioner Lucy on the phone. Thank you, Commissioner Lucy. Okay. Mr. Manager, well done, team.
Mr. Chair, next item, and this is kind of a corollary item. This is item 14. This discussion and possible action on the county manager's recommended capital improvement plan for fiscal years 2020 through 2024, and to direct the county manager to submit the CIP to the state of Nevada and others by August 1st, 2019. And this item could be continued to May 28th, 2019 at 10 a.m. We are here today to recommend the CIP for approval. Lori Cook will cover this item.
Ms. Cook, you're still up.
Good morning again, at least for the next few minutes. Lori Cook, Budget Manager, Washoe County. We are, NRS 354.5945 requires all local governments to annually prepare a 5-year capital improvement plan. It's interesting because we adopt single-year budgets, but we approve 5-year capital plans. So a lot of these items we know are on the horizon, but we don't have costing for them, or if we do, we don't know what's going to change in the out years. The plan for Washoe County for projects, we talk about capital projects that are $100,000 a year or more and assets with a lifespan of more than 1 year. So there are things that we purchase that are capital purchases in nature per, they're over $10,000 for local funds or $5,000 for federal funds, but those don't necessarily meet the criteria of a capital project per se. So the budget that was just adopted with prior motion includes these year one, everything in column. So as an orientation, the top chart is by fund. So these are the appropriations for projects by fund. And below are those same expenditures separated out by function. So you can see the different functionalities with them. And so just to re-inform the board and also to the public, the CIP process parallels the annual budget process. Starts a little bit earlier. We have meetings with departments, project requests are submitted, and the capital improvement CIP committee is composed of the 3 assistant county managers, the county CIO, chief information officer, the comptroller, and the budget manager. So a lot of times what's focused on is, we call it Fund 402, but it's called the Capital Improvement Fund. So these are the new projects. So these don't include carry forward projects. So these numbers at the bottom total aren't going to tie out to that first page because there's some carry forward. These are new projects that we are that are in the CIP, and these are separated out by function. So we can see them by function and kind of where they're going. And if we do have subject matter experts in the audience, should there be questions or things on specifics. But what I wanted to know is that there was a time when within this fund, the majority of the projects were funded with general fund support, general fund transfer support. And the general fund transfer support in fiscal year 20 is $6.4 million. Well, that obviously doesn't support those, all those projects we saw on page 1, so some, or slide 2, I guess. Some of those are carry forward, but then other ones, we're finding other sources for these. So what we see now is there are a lot more of either blended, leveraged, or multiple funding sources. So that's what those asterisks represent. They represent either partial or all funded from non-general fund sources. So if anybody tries to tie out the math, it's not that it doesn't add up, it's just where the funding's coming from. And there are some really important good things that we're planning on for next year. So you can see of culture and recreation, projects under general government, and the judicial function. And then within public safety, there are quite a few projects under public safety. And just as a reminder for anybody who may be listening, public safety is not just the sheriff's office. We have the medical examiner's office, alternative sentencing, juvenile services, emergency management. There are different functions within the county that also are, of course, by far the largest is the sheriff, but the sheriff isn't the only public safety function. And then we have some projects in the public works function. So again, kind of like the overall county budget or recommending increases, we see that even within the new projects for next year, we kind of see this cross-functionality approach. And thank you to, I know Amber's out in the audience, and she gave us this, call it a pictograph, but this representation to talk about in a more formal setting or in a more, so that the citizens can understand when we talk about NAM's campus, what are we talking about? So we're talking about the items that are on here, increasing services. We're talking about the ability to separate vulnerable populations that currently reside at the Community Assistance Center, otherwise known as Record Street. That, as has been discussed, doesn't just benefit the populations identified on the slide, but will free up capacity at Record Street facility. There are a number of funding mechanisms to get to this amount, and we've worked, Amber and the team and the Public Works team that was up here, it has really been a joint effort to try and what does this look like and how do we get this to move forward. So the capital fund, these are some designated projects for next year. You can see it's almost $5 million. There are items that are carry over, and what that means is they've been budgeted and programmed, but they either didn't happen or didn't 100% happen this year, so they're carrying over into next year. So some of these are new and some of these are from prior years. And within the Utilities Capital Fund, we have highlights. Obviously, the largest project on here, which the board has heard historically or most recently, the notice of intent for the state revolving fund or the SRF loans related to the Stum Wharf expansion. So that's the largest project identified within the Utilities Fund, but there are a lot of significant projects within the Utilities Fund as well. And this is the same information that we've talked about before. We know there are major capital improvement needs on the horizon. We know there's IT infrastructure, there's North Valley's library needs, Second Judicial District Court, senior facility, detention infirmary, different areas related to regional parks, trails, and open space. So there haven't been, and nor was there with the previous action, final decisions on any of the above needs. And some or all of the costs associated with the identified items, or even stuff that might come up between now and the next 3 months, could require use of debt financing. So we just keep that out there because it's a big, these are expensive things, $200 million plus when you add them all together. And so that's it from me related to this item. Unless you have questions.
Commissioners? Any questions? Okay.
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Yes, Commissioner Lucy, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to also once again thank staff for putting together such a comprehensive CIP plan. But one thing I do want to point out is that we constantly are looking at massive CIP plans that are going to need a number of attention or significant improvements over the next few years. And we have to continue to look for ways to try to make this list diminishing rather than growing as it currently sits. It seems that we are constantly challenged to find new sources of revenue to pay for these CIP plans. So I would challenge our board to continue to look for those new revenue sources, whether it's in the form of a GST tax or something of that nature. But we do need to have the more robust discussion and to talk about these issues as it pertains to courthouses, as it pertains to jails, as it pertains to our parks. There are a number of initiatives that we need to address, and it is our responsibility as commissioners to address those issues and bring forth those services for our community. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Lucy. Okay. And our CIP is, it's what people see, believe it or not. They notice They notice that, the programs in the CIP, they notice when there's no money in their parks budgets. They notice when when roads aren't fixed and et cetera. And they notice, they don't see some of the things internally, but they do see a lot of the external things. And so it's, the CIP is extremely important for us because that's how we fund a lot of the facilities that people utilize on a daily basis. Okay, Commissioners, anyone else? All right. I will entertain a motion, or we can move this off until the next meeting.
Move to approve.
Okay, I have a motion by Commissioner Lucy, second by Commissioner Burke Bigler. Madam Clerk, is there any public comment? Okay, seeing none, is there any discussion? All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Mr. Manager.
Do you want to keep moving on?
And
Item
Lori?
I'm sorry? Yes, yeah, proceed. Item 15.
Item 15, this is public hearing, possible action to hold first reading of an ordinance amending ordinance number 1000, which makes changes to District 24 Groundwater Remediation District.
The gift that keeps on giving. Okay, who do we have? We'll open the public hearing, and we need a first reading, Madam Clerk.
We do. In fact, on this item, Mr. Chairman, we have actually two ordinances being introduced, so I will read you two different numbers. The first will be Bill number 1823, an ordinance amending ordinance number 1000 in order to change the boundaries of District number 24, groundwater remediation, and providing other matters relating thereto. And the second will be Bill number 1824, an ordinance imposing a fee on the parcels of land in Washoe County, Nevada, District number 24, groundwater remediation, to pay the costs of developing and carrying out a plan for remediation and prescribing other matters relating thereto.
Okay. Mr. Smith, would you just give us a brief on this so that we sort of understand and people understand what we're dealing with? I believe this has to do with the PCE plume that we've experienced over the last, 40 years, 50 years?
For the record, Dwayne Smith, Director of Engineering and Capital Projects. This item before you is what we do on an annual basis to adjust both the contaminant boundaries if they do change within the Central Truckee Remediation District area, and also our service boundary. So there's two different boundaries. I'll start with the contaminant boundary first. This year there is no changes to the contaminant boundary. The contaminant boundary identifies those areas where plumes of contamination exist underneath the ground of the PCE material. We monitor that material. We have significant number of monitoring wells. We take lots of samples. We identify where those plumes are, if those plumes are moving in response to changing groundwater levels or municipal wells. So there's a lot of work that goes into that part of the process. No changes to the boundary. The service boundary area is the critical boundary that allows us to identify a funding source to both monitor and to mitigate the groundwater contamination issues. The service boundary is based under legislation under NRS, and it identifies any water service purveyor who has municipal wells within a contaminant boundary. So any municipal water purveyor that has a well that provides water that is located within that contaminant within the PCE contaminant boundary is subject to fees. Those fees are paid for then by each of us as water users in support of the program. Every year that service boundary changes when new areas are added or annexed into the service territory. Our primary service provider is the Truckee Meadows Water Authority. So anytime a new development or subdivision comes online, the contaminant boundary, or excuse me, the service boundary expands to include those service groups. Subsequently, the fee for that service is adjusted. And you can see that as the number of participants within the service boundary increases, generally speaking, those fees go down. Not a whole lot of change this year. You'll see that the fees are basically the same as they were before. So the item before you is the first reading of this public process to identify both the changes to the boundaries and to the fee structure.
And Mr. Smith, how are we removing those volatiles from the groundwater? Do we remove it as we use the water, or are we actually removing the groundwater and cleansing it and then re-injecting it?
Great question. Part of the value in what the Central Turk Remediation District does is has led the efforts to construct stripping towers associated with Tumwell municipal wells. So there's a significant amount of the PCE material that's removed on an annual basis from those wells through these treatment processes. Of course, this is in partnership with the Truckee Meadows Water Authority as the water purveyor. Certainly they have responsibility for providing safe drinking water, which they do through these actions and activities. The second way that we're building up to a project to actually go in and remove PCE material from the environment directly, not through municipal wells, but directly. That effort has been identified and is moving forward. We're working very closely with the state of Nevada on definitions of responsibility, both for the property owner that owns the area that created the contamination and what our responsibilities as basically the contractor going in to remove those. That's some upcoming efforts. Those efforts are underway, excuse me, and those are some upcoming projects. And I'm very much looking forward to coming back to you with those projects as we continue to develop that.
Okay, so not to belabor this, but so we're talking about solvents. And some of these solvents go back many years from dry cleaning and automobile repair and et cetera. So is it fallen on the existing property owners? Is that what you're suggesting? It's fallen on them because, a dry cleaner from the 1950s is long gone.
No, that's also a great question because, yes, the burden for, there's two places that this burden falls to. First of all, if you're a property owner and you own a property where the contaminant plume is located and that property has caused impact, certainly there is a responsibility of that property owner. So our funds, the state has funding that helps go through that process, but it really does sit on the shoulders of those property owners. Our funding that is collected through it is more or less the mitigation program, the analysis, the identification, the management of the program. So the funds that we draw specifically don't go whole to these mitigation activities. They do partially, but when it comes to actual physical removal of material in the field through field projects, the property owners certainly have a shared responsibility.
Okay. Okay, commissioners, any questions? All right, seeing none. Commissioner Lucy, do you have any questions? I will entertain a motion on the gift of PCEs that keeps on giving.
We just need an introduction,
An
Mr.
introduction.
Chair.
Thank you. My bad.
Mr. Chair, I will move to introduce Bill number 1823 and Bill number 1824.
With the second reading on June 11th?
Yes, with a second reading scheduled to be held on second reading and possible adoption on June 11th.
Okay, all right. Mr. Manager.
Mr. Chair, next item, this is item 16. This is an update on the Washoe County Manager recruitment and possible direction on the next step of the interview process and assessment areas for interview questions. Our HR staff is here. This might be a little bit of a team approach as we get into this, but Patricia Hurley, HR Director, is here to kick this off.
Ms. Hurley, welcome.
Thank you, Commissioner. Patricia Hurley, Human Resources Director for the record. As you know, on April 23rd, you provided direction for us to open up the county manager recruitment. We did open the recruitment up for 2 weeks with a closing date of May 7th. We used all of our standard advertising venues for this recruitment. As you can see above, the biggest one being the social media outreach. What I do want to remind the commission is during that time on April 23rd, they did approve the minimum qualifications for the positions to include those up above with a master's degree in any of those areas or a closely related field. They would also have to have 5 years of responsible management experience, preferably in government or public administration, and there was also an equivalency statement for training and experience. Based on that, HR did receive a total of 17 applications, with 11 of those accepted as meeting the minimum qualifications as described in the previous slide. These 11 candidates have not been screened beyond the minimum qualifications. What I also want to remind the commission of is on April 23rd, you did talk about ideal candidate information. These are the ones that you did approve, and those were put on the recruitment announcement so that the candidates that were trying to apply or those that applied were aware of what the commission was looking for. I am now going to turn it over to Indu Moore, who is the recruitment lead on this project, so she can talk to you about the distinction between minimum qualifications and ideal candidate information.
Ms. Moore.
Thank you. For the record, Indu Moore, Human Resources. So the minimum qualifications are listed on every class specification or job description that we have, and they serve as the basic screening requirements. An applicant must meet the minimum qualifications in order to move forward in the selection process. The ideal candidate information is a bit different. This allows for more latitude in terms of what's on the job description. Applicants do not need to meet the ideal candidate criteria in order to move forward in the selection process. And as previously mentioned, all 11 candidates were screened for the minimum qualifications and not the ideal candidate criteria. So again, the primary distinction is one is an actual requirement, whereas one is desired criteria. Next, we have assessment areas. Based on the ideal candidate information, Human Resources identified several assessment areas to use when developing interview questions. And you can see some of the different areas that we've identified. In addition, On Strategy is working with the commissioners to develop more specific detail in regard to desired assessment criteria. Based on the information provided, HR will then fine-tune the interview questions even further. In regard to the next steps of the process, the board may opt to interview all 11 candidates who met the minimum qualifications for the position, and a special session can be held on May 30th to interview all of the 11 candidates. Or the board can review all 11 candidates' information on May 28th and then nominate top candidates to move to final interviews, thereby narrowing down the applicant pool. The final interviews can still take place on May 30th. Another option is that Human Resources can reopen the recruitment for an extended period of time, which would allow us to conduct national advertising and possibly increase our applicant pool. Another option is that an assessment panel can be convened to either narrow down the candidate pool or simply provide the board with additional feedback and perspective from the assessment panel. Then the final option is that Human Resources can contract with an executive search firm to conduct the recruitment. And we have outlined proposed timelines for each option.
Okay. Is that it?
Yes.
Okay. So, commissioners, let's look back just for a moment, if we could, when we were looking for the county manager, Mr. Slaughter, who won that position, when Miss Simon Holland, stepped down, decided to retire. And So I'm, just in retrospect, I'm a little concerned. How long, do you know, do we have any records on how long we actually left that slot, that application process open? It had to be more than 2 weeks.
Oh, yes, it was certainly open for more than 2 weeks. It was open for a minimum of 1 month,
Right.
possibly even longer.
So here's my concern. I'm just not sure whether we left it open long enough. Only getting 17 candidates, because we had probably 3 times the candidates originally. While I recognize we used a national search firm and they were out looking, but we still had a lot more candidates apply. And then Commissioners Jung and Burke Bigler recall that we, remember we did we hosted like a little meet and greet where we got an opportunity to meet the candidates on a one-to-one basis. Do you recall that? Where we actually held it out in the atrium. And that was, I thought that was good because it gave us an opportunity to meet them sort of on a one-to-one basis. So what's the pleasure of the board? Commissioner Jung, I have you signed in.
So can I get some numbers from you? So in this previous endeavor, when we were replacing the Katie Simon Holland, how many applicants did we get?
For the record, in DuMore Human Resources, we received over 50 applicants.
And how much did we whittle it down to?
11.
So I think that's de minimis. I don't have a problem with it unless you know who the 11 are. I don't know who they are.
I don't.
I mean, honestly, it doesn't matter how long you leave it open. If people are interested in applying, they apply. They're usually first at the bat. Leaving it open, I don't think that you're going, and I mean, you guys tell us, I'm basing this on data, but it's old data, I have to admit. But I just don't see leaving it entirely open for any more time. You're going to get anybody any differently that already self-selected. I was in favor of using a headhunter if that was the way we would go. I'm not interested in keeping it open any longer unless we get some professional help to do an executive search, because we are in such a different situation this time around. So those are my points and my wishes.
Thank you. Commissioner Herrmann.
This is such an important thing, the head person, the head employee of our county. And I feel that we really need to be careful and make sure we have all the opportunities to get the right person to replace who we've had. I don't want to make any mistakes. I want to get it right. So I don't want to rush into it any faster than we have to, because it is so important to the people of this county. They deserve the best they can get. Thank you.
Commissioner Burke Bigler.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't know who the 11 candidates are, so I have no basis to understand whether or not we actually have the ideal candidate in that pool. But I tend to agree with Commissioner Jung that if we're going to open this back up, I think we should just go for a national search rather than just posting it to try to get local people. I know we're expending money. I don't know what that cost is going to be, but it can't be so much that it would be prohibitive. And so if the sense is that we need a bigger pool to pull from, I agree with Commissioner Jung. I think we need to go for a national search.
Okay. Commissioner Lucy.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I do have some comments on the conversation, and I have a tendency to agree with both Commissioner Jung and Commissioner Burke Bigler that at this point, we made the commitment that we would do an open recruitment, and through that open recruitment, if we got enough candidates that we felt confident with, that we would proceed forward with interviews. It seems that at this time we haven't received a number of applicants as we have seen in years past for this position, and this is a very important position as Commissioner Herrmann has outlined. And I believe at this time we should move forward with a national search. If we reopen with a national search team, and that's what we would discuss we would do. I don't think you're going to get more applicants if you just open it up for another open application period. I think you really need, if you're going to get more applicants, you need that professional help. I think we move forward with that process. I also believe that we need to probably provide any new national search firm and HR a little bit more clarity on specifically and exactly what qualities we are looking for. You know, we do have the minimum applications, but do we have consensus on the board of those qualities and what we're looking for? Because this is of great concern to me. I care deeply about this position because I care deeply about the county, and just to go haphazard and very loosely through this process has not proved to be beneficial in any shape or form at this point. So, in my opinion, I would recommend that we move forward with the national search team. Move any applicants that we've received, the 11 applicants that we received, to the national search team, and let them conduct a more robust process.
Okay. All right. Before you jump in, Commissioner Burke, Bigler, let me just ask a question. So if we decide to go with the national search firm, that's okay. Do we use the search firm how did we make the choice of the search firm before? I know we used Ralph Anderson. Are there others? And so that's the question. So how do we go about choosing a search firm also? So hold on, Commissioner Jung. I have, let me start with Manager Slaughter, and then Commissioner Burke Bigler, you'll be next, and then Commissioner Jung.
Mr. Chair, specific to your question on selection of the search firm, and I had gone back in preparation for this, I'd gone back and looked, and I believe, and staff can correct me if I'm wrong, at that time we did consider a couple of different firms.
Okay.
And went through some sort of a process to identify that Ralph Anderson was the one that we chose.
Yeah, I don't recall it coming to the board. Yeah, I don't think we were asked either. And Commissioner Jung is saying yes. Yeah, the manager selected that. So hold on just a second, and I'll let you jump in, Commissioner Burke.
I have seen some of the documents related to, and perhaps I misspoke. The board perhaps was not involved in that process. There were at least 3 other firms that were considered by staff, I guess, at the time.
Okay.
Again, I was not part of that process, but I have seen the documentation of the 3 firms that were considered at the time.
Okay, Commissioner Burke Bigler, and then Commissioner Jung.
Thank you, and do we have a firm that we generally use? I mean, are we still using that firm, or does HR have a firm? Because we've done other recruitments where we've used a firm. Do you have a firm that you have preference to use?
For the record, I do more, human resources. So we have used Ralph Anderson, not only for the previous county manager recruitment, we also used Ralph Anderson in 2014 for the chief information officer recruitment. We do have other firms that we can certainly look into, and we have previously contracted with.
So, thank you very much. So, in line with the other items that you think, that the commissioners might think we need to look at, I don't recall if we put on there that this person needs to be somebody who has government experience. It has to be somebody who understands how government works and understands the work-through process.
You're talking about the search firm, Commissioner?
No,
or
I'm not.
the manager?
I'm talking about the manager.
Okay,
So this is a dual comment.
Thank you.
Because I don't feel strongly one way or the other about the search firm, because I think that's why we have a great HR team, is that they know who the people are out there, and they can make recommendations to us as to who they think the best search firm would be. And if we want to interview those search firms that they work, I'm fine with that also. But just so 3 things is what I want to say. That additionally, I want to make sure that one of the qualities that the search firm will look for is that these are people who have worked in government before and get the grasp of what's important in government. And I think that's very important And then thirdly, and I lost it, senior moment.
I'll come back to you.
All right.
Commissioner Jung.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, I'm going to say on the record, I didn't love our previous firm, so I'd prefer you not use them. I didn't like the sort of the angle they were pursuing and some of the ones that they put in our recommendations. There's no way that would have ever even slid through you guys as a qualifying applicant. So I would like another firm to do that. And I think the other firm would naturally fall out as to who that was once, per the vice chairman's suggestion, that we get a more robust sense of, at least we're all pulling in the same way. None of us are going to agree on what we're looking for, but if we're sort of being facilitated in a way, and I don't think that needs to be public, and I think this should be fact-finding on our facilitator's part, I think that will then lend to what's your best firm by looking at what are our criteria. To go to Commissioner Burke Bigler's point with needing government experience, I absolutely agree, and I will say it again, I think we need a Master's of Public Administration. That needs to be the qualifying mark, because I don't think this county, at the size that we are at and the growth we are in experience at this time, we can't do any more on-the-job training. I think we need somebody that has gone to school for this and knows exactly how to deploy resources. We don't need a finance wizard. We have great finance. We don't need a great community services division. That is running finely. We don't need a great communications director. We have her. So I can go to each of the areas. I think we have all great people, and there is no deficits in those areas, that this is a time we get a professional who went to school, invested their time, their resources to absolutely learn what you do to deploy this type of organization with the resources we have, as well as the boundaries that bind us as a government organization. So I will say that over and over, that is my requirement for that. I need someone who can take what is already and been created by the manager and groomed, a great organization, and take it to the next level. And I don't think on-the-job training is the way to go with that. So yes, they need government experience, but they also need the proper education, and that would be at least a master's in public administration. Thank you.
Commissioner Burke Bigler, did you? No, I'm sorry. Did you remember? Okay. Okay. So,
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Commissioner Lucy, please.
If I can fair some comments after Commissioner Jung's comments, though I agree that education is very much a driving factor of this position, I do believe that experience is so much more than just a public policy master's degree. There are a lot of individuals out there that have master's degrees that may not have the experience that could or organize and manage a facility or a organization of this size. And then when you talk about experience, I believe experience time and time again will overpower any discussion as it pertains to education. Masters in educations are phenomenal, they're wonderful, but they don't necessarily give you the skill set necessary to run an organization of this size. And so that's where Commissioner Jung and I will disagree. However, I think that, and I believe that also, I think that it's important that community relationships are vested into this. Other communities, i.e. the city of Reno, the city of Sparks, other entities that we work with continuously have some sort of input into this process, because these are the individuals that will have to work with this manager on an ongoing basis. And as you all know, our manager is very active within the community and participates in a number of different boards and a number of different facilities. So I believe that experience is paramount when we start a selection process.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner. So let me jump in, Commissioner Jung, real quick, and then, okay, Commissioner Jung, you speak. You speak.
Turn. Thank you. I don't think that, I guess I wasn't clear in what I was saying, what the vice chairman jumped in on, which is absolutely, I don't think that I was saying you just have to have a master's degree and then you're ready to go. Of course you have to experience deploying it, but that experience needs to be informed by the education that you have behind you to do it. But yes, they have to go one hand in hand at that matter. And I believe when we did, I never went to the community forums because that's not the way that I believe that you can make objective decisions with a rubric, et cetera. But I do believe, Mr. Slaughter, you can speak to this because you went through it. Didn't we have the managers of both Sparks and Reno at your community forums? Or were they on the panel? Listen, I'm not trying to recreate the wheel. You guys are the experts. You went to school for this. You have lots of experience. But I believe there was input. I mean, they would never be able to stop us dead. I mean, sometimes I even feel like, why are you writing me a letter of recommendation? I don't care what you want, right? From the other cities. They never had the ability to knock it dead, but I think it was. And I feel sorry for applicants that have to go through all that. I wouldn't do it. I would say forget it. I'm not doing a beauty pageant. But if that is what the will of the board is, do it. But I do believe it's very open, very transparent. These people did have a say, but they're never our final say. Otherwise, why are we here? So I think that is just par for the course for this type of position that is based on community relations and the ability to work together. At that level. But I want to reiterate again, Washoe County is the leader here. We have doubled the budget of the largest city in our region, and we provide exactly what government services are supposed to provide. So I want to take that approach from our facilitator, from you recruiters. That's how we want to position ourselves. We are the regional leaders here. So while it is important to do the beauty pageant, I guess, like I said, I would never agree to that. We have the final say, and that's also going to inform how you recruit for that as well. Thank you.
Mr. Luparelli, I have you signed in next.
Mr. Chairman, your agenda item today on number 16 was an update on the process and direction on the next step of the interview process and assessment areas for questions. It's starting to sound to me like the process that was initially in place maybe is being reevaluated, and that maybe some commissioners are interested in kind of a redesign of what was initially laid out, which was to have your staff solicit some names, to have that process narrowed down, and to begin the interviews of the people who were already in the pool. I've heard several comments from various angles about the potential need to double back and consult with experts and get some input on potentially growing that pool. So under item 16, you're fairly limited. You have the ability to give direction along the lines of what was initially going to be the process. But if you want to stop that process and start a new one, or give direction on a modified one, you can do that under future agenda items. You can make your requests clear. So to be more concrete about it, do you want your staff to go hire a recruitment firm, or do you want your staff to bring you choices and then the board hires the selection firm? Those are the kinds of things I think you need to be more clear about at some point, so that the staff can give you what you're looking for.
Okay. Manager Slaughter, I've got you signed in.
I believe Mr. Luparelli summarized what was one of my thoughts, was if the board is pointing towards a selection of a firm, recruitment firm, that would need to come back. I did know, I looked it up through our minutes on May 28th and June 13th of 2013. The board was presented with a panel of firms, and on June 13th they selected Ralph Anderson. So that process was here at the commission back then.
We did? We knew nothing about it, though. Okay. Okay, Commissioner Burke Bigler, I have you signed in.
Thank you. So I was actually I finally remembered my third point, but based on, based on what our district attorney has told us, I think I will hold that until later and just comment on it later and give direction later on it. So, but I think that we If you're ready for a motion, I have a motion that I would be happy to make, giving them further direction.
Okay, Commissioner Lucy, do you have anything else?
No, Chairman, I do not.
Okay, thank you. So I'll save my comments because I think we'll give more direction. So Mr. Liparelli, what you're suggesting is that under item 20, we give direction in terms of what we're looking for? Or should we bring back, in other words, the qualifications, whether they have a master's in public administration or whether they have a master's in, business administration or a master's in education or whatever it happens to be. So I think what you're telling us is that we're not styled right now to give that direction.
Well, it's a hard place to be because the law wants you to do things in public and be open about what you're doing, but it's difficult for boards to be able to do that if they don't have it on their agenda and can't vote on it. So I guess my suggestion on number 16 is if that process that was set forth a few weeks ago is not going to work, then maybe the action under item 16 is just to halt that process. And then under future agenda items, you can provide the direction on what you want to see. As Mr. Slaughter mentioned, do you want to see a list of recruitment firms to pick from and engage one? Do you want to authorize your staff to go pick one? Do you want to use, some other approach, a subcommittee approach or a blue ribbon commission approach? It's a wide open universe as to how you want to do it. But it's starting to sound to me like the process underway is not yielding what the board wants. And so you could, under 16, halt that process and tell everybody what you want to do instead.
And so again, what you're suggesting though is bring back an item on our next agenda where we can give that direct direction.
You certainly can.
In terms of search firm, in terms of qualifications, if we want to modify qualifications and et cetera.
Yeah, you can't make a binding decision today based on your agenda on what to do, but under future agenda items, you certainly can.
Okay.
As individual commissioners, give the staff some ammo to work with.
Okay, Commissioner Burke Bigler.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Liparelli, as I recall the motion from the last meeting where we set this plan up, we also included in that motion the ability to give them direction to hire a national search firm. So that's actually already on the table, that they could do that. So do we need a motion to tell them to go do that and bring us back how they want to handle it? Because if, based on that, I guess we really don't, we can just say we've given you direction and we don't really need a motion.
Okay, Commissioner Jung.
Things. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, let's write a different way that we do the agenda item next time so that you can take a vote and action on all these things, because this is just a delay tactic now. And I think Commissioner Burke Bigler is right. We said if then was our vote. If this doesn't, and I'm not saying that the 11 fabulous people that applied are not eligible for this. I think they stay in the group. You guys have decided that they've made it past the thing. Keep them in there, because that's not fair either to say now you're going to go through this whole other process. They're in. But please make the agenda item when you come back to give us lots of leeway, because this is just we're going to sit around and talk about this forever now. I don't want to select the search firm. Again, what I said was, once the facilitator has knocked out everything that we want, they'll know exactly which search firm to go with. And they probably already do right now in their head based on what we've said back and forth about this. I'm sorry I'm getting frustrated, but this shouldn't be, wordsmithing and going over and over and over what we're doing. A lot of this can be done by talking to commissioners individually as well. But I did want to make sure that we are not putting on the record that the 17 who applied, who we thank you and thank you all, and the 11 who made the cut are any less than. I've never said that. I said we didn't get as many as which we knew would not happen because you didn't do it like most counties do. But we did hustle down to 11, which was the same as we did when we had 51. So I'm not making a judgment one way or the other where you're at in this process. What I am saying is if we are not satisfied, because somebody must have more information than me because I have not seen the list, if we are not satisfied with the 11, let's do as I had said before and do a national search and professionalize this with a headhunting executive team committee who that's all they do is look at this and hopefully are listening to this, and hopefully you're listening to us kind of where we're going with this. And again, I will state for the record, education must be, I believe, subject matter expert in public administration, and of course they're going to have experience in that. That's the only way you will deploy an expert to take care of all of these well-running departments. We don't need anybody coming in here to recreate the wheel or to learn on the job. But I don't want to belabor and belittle this that's so important here on the public record when I think you guys should just hit the ground running. We tried it with let's just put it on the internet. Obviously, if you saw something I didn't see or they've seen something I didn't say, you're not happy with the 11 that came, let's go and do this appropriately with a headhunter, not the one that we had before. I'm not saying their name because I don't want to slander them. I did not like their packet, and I did not enjoy speaking to the person who did it with some of the people that were in my recommended packet. So I'm just saying to you, that's not who I want. And I know there's much better out there too. Thank you.
Okay, so commissioners, I will remind us that we can move forward. We don't have to do that. We've got 11 candidates, and we can move forward, get that group and get those applications in front of us so that we do know who we're talking about. So that is certainly one of our options that we can proceed with. Commissioner Herrmann.
I just wanted to apologize to you guys, because sometimes we kind of mess things up ourselves because we give you kind of mixed up messages. And so I just wanted to say that because I think you've been working very hard on this and doing exactly what we told you to do. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so commissioners, before you have one more thing, Commissioner Burke?
Yeah,
right
just
now?
one more
Go
thing.
ahead.
I just wanted to say that I'm actually fine with going with the 11, but I think the other commissioners, I don't think there's a consensus. Commissioner Herrmann is clearly interested in taking time and making sure we do the right thing. I know Commissioner Lucy is clearly interested in a national search, and it sounds like Commissioner Jung was before and still is. So I think that's the direction we need to head.
Okay.
And I think that they already have direction to do that. So I don't, unless our district attorney, Mr. Liparelli, wants to tell me differently, I think we've already given them direction to do that.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Lucy.
Mr. Chair, I don't necessarily feel that we need to go forward with a national search. I'm okay with seeing the 11 candidates. I just said if there is going to be a need for a more expansive pool of candidates, I believe at this point, then we need to reopen the process. And if we were going to reopen the process, that a national search firm should be employed. However, I'm okay right now moving forward with 11 candidates, and I'm fine moving forward in that process. So I want to make that abundantly clear.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Liparelli, I have you next.
Mr. Chairman, I just want to say again, under item 16, you can move the process forward that you set forth before and tell your staff what you want them to do with regard to the interview process and the assessment areas for the interview questions. So you can either do that under 16, or you can decide not to and to do something different and then give your direction later on what that different thing is. But item number 16 does not authorize you to pick a recruiting firm. It does not authorize you to create a subcommittee. It doesn't authorize you to create a citizens committee. So either continue the track under item 16 and tell your staff what you want them to do, or stop that track and outline the new one.
Okay. So, Commissioners, I'm going to open up public comment real quickly because I have someone wishing to speak. Before we make a motion, let's go ahead and do that. Hold tight, HR staff, and Madam Clerk, would you open public comment, please?
Certainly. We just have one person signed in, Ms. Tammy Holtstill.
Tammy Holtstill, Lemmon Valley Swan Lake Recovery Committee, for the record. My thoughts on this process is, after being before you for 2 years, 6 months, and however many days, and seeing the lack of action or just-in-time type of management style, I think at this point, finding the right person for the job is going to take more than just whoever was qualified within the state of Nevada. I think it's time to find someone who is going to be more interactive with the public, who is going to look at the safety concerns, all of that stuff that's out there right now that have been issues since January of 2017. And as residents, we believe this just-in-time theory is not good enough. The lack of communication from Washoe County is not good enough, and it's time to change it. You have the right to do it, and you should do it. Thank you.
Okay. Madam Clerk, is there anyone else?
I had no one signed in besides Ms. Holtstill.
Okay, thank you. So here's what's before us. Move forward or halt. Those are our choices today. Okay, Commissioner Jung.
I don't believe that's what the attorney said. I think the district attorney advised us that we can't give specific direction, but I believe that we can at this time say, if we go out and do this post on Facebook job opening, then we don't believe we got the volume that we would like to have. Then we go to a national search with an executive headhunter. And I believe that we are fully able to give that direction at this time based on our last agendas. And that should be the direction at this time, in light of the fact I've always wanted that to be done. Commissioner Herrmann has said, whoa, hold up, I need to put some brakes on this one. This is making me nervous. I think that the other three, clearly there's something going on, because they also said, well, let's do the national search. So, and I think even to go behind that is, you hadn't got a lot of direction from us because it's on the public record, which is difficult. So the facilitator is a tremendous idea. We've never had it before. That can meet with each of us or talk to each of us. And I again believe that will inform you who should be the executive headhunter and what will the questions be like at our discretion. I don't want anybody making up my question. I think you can throw us 20 questions and we can decide which one we'll use or not use or rewrite ourselves. But I do believe we have that wiggle room to say, here is your direction. I think you've heard it all very well. I don't think we need to take a vote. And go on from there. No, the pause is not necessary to bring this back on another agenda item. We had already built that in the first time we talked about this. Mr. Liparelli, and you know, with my vast knowledge of the law of open meeting law and formal study, am I right or am I way off and you really need us to have an emergency meeting to give them direction?
Mr. Liparelli, please define for us what we are styled to do today.
Okay, there's a lot of all in there. Let me try to get to it. It is difficult in Nevada because of the open meeting law and the requirements for hiring a chief executive and the process that has to be used. So I don't blame you for not being completely happy with the requirements of the law. But the law says that you have to give notice of things that you're going to act on. And there's no notice in this agenda for anything other than a continuation of the process that you set forth before, which is to have your staff solicit names, bring you back a pool, and tell them how you wanted to go about the interview process with those people. That's what this agenda contemplates. If you want to go that way, it's set up to do it, and all you need to do is tell your staff what the next step in that process is. When do you want to do the interviews? How many do you want to interview? Do you want to interview all 11 in public? Do you want to, have a two-part process of reducing the names down to finalists? What does the rest of the process look like? You can say that under item 16. But if you want to go back and use a different process, if you want to consult with experts, if you want to get an advisor involved, if you want to get a facilitator involved, or a committee or some other process, then that has to be done at a future meeting with a specific agenda item. So if you want that kind of an approach, give direction on when you want that item to come back and what you want it to say. So, if you have questions about that,
If I've heard you correctly, we either halt this agenda item, period, or we ask staff to bring back the 11 names. Go ahead, Commissioner Burke.
Not entirely.
But because the motion last time also allowed them to
Your
go
mic.
to national search. If we were not, if we didn't get the names that we wanted to, or we didn't get any names, or
still
we
don't
didn't get
know.
whatever, they could then just, we voted to let them go do a national search. So I don't understand the halt. Term halt, to me, means just throw everything we've done so far in the trash can and move on. I think what we can simply say today is follow the directions from the motion that we gave you last time. We're going to have to do a national search. Do we, and my question to you was, do we need a motion that says, okay, the motion last time gave you the ability to do a national search, now go do it. Do we need to do that?
The halt part is that agenda item 16 was your opportunity to tell your staff what are the next steps with regard to the 11 people who have met the minimum qualifications. Do you want to interview them next week, all 11, in a special meeting, or what? The halt part is if you want to go back now and add more dimensions to this, then the halt is don't schedule the interviews now, don't outline the process now, don't use your staff's time to work on a process that's going to be supplemented by something else. As to the hiring of the search firm, the motion last time may have contemplated doing that as a backup to this process if it didn't give you satisfactory results, but there's no opportunity in that for the board to be involved in the selection of the firm. So if you want your staff to go hire one, they will have to go do that with their own discretion, and it won't be the board's decision as to who that is. So if you're comfortable with that, you can say that. But if the board wants to make the decision on the firm, and Mr. Slaughter said a few moments ago, that's how it worked last time, then you need to schedule an item for that to happen. That would be a new item.
Well, okay, I get that, but I don't like the term halt. Because halt, to me, implies that we've done a process for 2 weeks and we have 11 names out there, any one of which may be the right person for the job. I don't want to just now go back to those 11 people and say, sorry, we don't want to go down that road.
No, unfortunate term halt, then I guess. Pause or reflect or re-examine or whatever's softer. No one's suggesting that the people that have stepped forward need to be dismissed or thrown away. What I was hearing was an interest in adding to that pool. So if you want to add, describe the process by which you want to add, and your staff will do it.
Are we styled to do that today, Mr. Luparelli, without taking action? Can we just give direction?
Your item 16 allows you to give direction, but it doesn't allow you to make final decisions on any of that. So you're going to have to give the direction that you see fit and trust your staff understands what that is and brings you back something next time that gives you the decision points that you're looking for.
Okay. And can staff meet individually with commissioners and get direction that way as well?
Individual meetings with commissioners are recognized as legal under the open meeting law as long as the process does not involve taking information from each commissioner and carrying it to the next commissioner. That's the serial meeting and the contamination process. So it's common and understood that your executive staff meets with commissioners and talks about county business. It's just that you can't use that process as a substitute for what must happen in public. Yeah. So yes, you can meet with consultants and advisors and individually give input to your HR director or your county manager or whoever you want, but it can't be used as a substitute for
a serial tool.
It can't be a serial meeting.
Yeah, we understand. Okay.
Yeah,
Mr.
we
Manager-
understand that, yeah.
Mr. Manager, I have you signed in.
Mr. Chair, I feel a need to make a statement for the record, and that is, it's my understanding that HR has not shared the applications of the 11 names with any of the commissioners, with myself. Patricia Hurley even has not seen that. The recruitment staff are the ones who are dealing with that at the moment. So I just want to make sure. I've heard references to the 11 names, and I just want to make sure that that's stated on the record.
Thank you, that's a good point, yeah. Yes, I mean, I certainly haven't seen any of the names, so, I mean, you know, I don't know who's on the list. But with that being said, then, Mr. Chairman, my direction to the, without making a motion, my direction to staff would be, please go back, go select a firm. I don't care whether it comes to the board or not, but follow our motion from last visit, select a firm, and please keep the 11 the applicants who meet the minimum qualifications. One of those people may be the person we want. And so please keep the 11 in there and let's move on.
Okay, so I have just a thought on the time frame, so go ahead. Commissioner Herrmann.
Okay. It doesn't mean that nobody that was on that list hasn't contacted people, though. So I just wanted to clarify that.
That's certainly possible.
Right, yes.
Yeah.
So here's my question, just for open discussion. We want to go back and have them search for a search firm. What's the time frame that we're going to give them? Because, you know, we have a, go ahead.
Can
HR?
we get the PowerPoint up again?
That's what I want to see. Okay. That's what I wanted to see. All right. Okay. So we're good. We don't, I guess, take no action at all, Mr. Luparelli. Commissioner Jung.
Does it have to be that long? I mean, and I'm not in any way advocating short time frame, long time frame. This is a long time now. And I, frankly, with the lack of direction you received from us to do this website search, of course that was accelerated, but maybe a little too small of a time frame, and you hear Commissioner Herrmann putting the brakes on, worried about that. So does it have to go all the way to October? Can you meet us somewhere in the middle? I mean, I think a month for an opening is ridiculous. Who would even apply to that? I mean, I love urgency and everything because I think it brings the cream of the crop rises to the top. Not somebody laying around for a month going, I don't know, maybe I'll apply for this. I think that's way too long of an opening. But again, I'm not a subject matter expert with HR, and nobody up here is, as far as I understand. So please correct us when we're wrong. That's why you're here. Is this timeline, I mean, it must be, this is your recommendation to us, and there must be a best practice of having it open that long, and I'm just speculating and making things up here because of my own experience in life, but no data to inform it, or professionalism, or classes on it. So that's just a yes or no question. I don't need you, I think we've belabored this enough. I feel like we could have already hired 5 managers at this point. So if that is your recommendation, final and best offer of what you say will allow you to do the due diligence that you've heard all of these commissioners and the one on the phone say to you, I'm fully endorsing that. I just wonder if, what are we, May, June, July,
It's only 5
August,
months.
September, October. Yeah, it's only 5 months. We did 6 months, I think, for slaughter. Yeah, I'm fully fine with this because I do feel like we were rushing. And frankly, an interim can take care of things here because it's already set up to be successful. To give us the time to each have our own perspective, input. I mean, it really only comes down to 3 votes, let's be honest, but I think it will give us maybe bigger mirrors to look at behind us, next to us, beside, in front of us, to put the person in who is here for all the right reasons, and that every commissioner feels an attachment and commitment to. I think that's important too, that, I mean, you're probably not going to get unanimous, but that they feel heard, and that at least part of their input crafted the process. And I think that's what you're trying to do. So I have no problem with the timeline. Strike all the other remarks I said with my speculation. Thank you.
Yeah, and just from my perspective, I think a search firm is going to want 30 days to prepare, get out there, talk to people. There's going to have some travel involved, and I mean, it's going to take a month. So, okay. That's, I wish you had your mic on when you just said that, Commissioner.
only
I
took
do.
us an hour to get to the point to do nothing.
Well, that's exactly correct. Sometimes you just have to have this discussion, and sadly, we're hobbled by the open meeting law.
Yeah.
It's a difficult process, and this is extremely important to all of us. It's intuitively obvious. It's important to everyone, all of our staff. It's very, very important. So, Mr. Liparelli, are we okay at this point to just march forward? Commissioner Lucy, I hear you. Is that, I'm sorry.
So, Mr. Chairman, is the board giving direction to follow the process that's outlined on the bullet points
It is.
on the slide that's
I believe
being
it is.
displayed? Okay. And I was just conferring with Mr. Slaughter. He recalls the range, the cost range for the recruitment firm is somewhere in the $30,000 to $40,000 range, so that's something that can be approved at the administrative level and won't take board action to approve. So with this direction, your HR staff will get a firm on board and get them under contract and work through these bullet points.
My only last comment would be if we can do it sooner, if it can be done faster than the October 7th date hire date, it would be nice. But I also understand that, it just takes time to make soup.
Patricia Hurley, HR for the record. Right now, that is just an estimate timeframe. I think once HR selects the executive recruitment firm, we'll have more firm dates as we firm this up to probably tighten that timeline a little bit better and get you better answers to the dates.
Okay, all right. Commissioners, I think we've kicked this horse long enough. We have beat it to death. We have indeed. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Mr. Manager. We are on to item
Item 17.
17, or
This is our discussion, direction staff regarding legislative issues proposed by legislators by Washoe County, Truckee Meadows Fire Protection District, or by others permitted by the state of Nevada legislature to submit bill draft requests or other legislative issues that may be deemed by the chair or the board to be of critical significance. Jamie Rodriguez, today is another deadline day. We seem to always hit those on Tuesdays. This is really one of the more important deadline days, getting bills out of second house. So after today, many bills will have lost their future at the legislature. Assistant County Manager Kate Thomas is here to review some particular items of interest. You should have, I hope you have, the Week 15 report for the legislative session.
And for the record, the clerk has been provided a copy of that report, and will make it part of the record of today's meeting.
thank you. Ms. Thomas, welcome.
Thank you. Happy afternoon. In front of you, as Manager Slaughter mentioned, you have the Week 15 bills of interest. I'm not going to comb through this entire document, but I will point out that on the front page, you do have the number of bills tracked that failed deadline. This report, as you know and have been previously mentioned, is a week behind. We prepare this on a Thursday, talk about it with our legislative team on a Friday. You get this today, so I apologize that it's not completely up to date. However, that, 28-ish% reduction in the bills number that we're tracking, 201 of those have not passed deadline. So that's a little bit more manageable. However, things heat up this time of year. So session, as Manager Slaughter mentioned, is underway. Friday the 17th was a second committee passage deadline. This Friday is the second House passage deadline, and we still, as you are all well aware, have 2 weeks left of the legislative session. So I'll flip over to the two bills that were provided for you this week. They're new. We're not recommending any direction on those bills, however, this week. It's too soon. They're amendments that are actively happening. There was, matter of fact, there was a hearing on AB 533 just this morning. So we're putting watch under both of those items for you. If you look on page 1, that's where those bills are located. So I mentioned things are still moving. We are expecting a few more last-minute bills, but AB 533, which I mentioned, makes a few changes to the existing laws around marijuana. It talks a little bit about the permissive nature for local governments to participate. It gives some permissive language for lounges. It does mention, though, that it prohibits liquor sale or consumption in those lounges, so there's some things that they're working through there. And then lastly, it expands some of the considerations to include distances from gaming establishments, things of that nature. So we will keep an eye on those. We'll be meeting again this week to talk about them. And then on page 2, you'll see a couple bills that have been removed from the list. We've notated in that right-hand column why they are removed. They could have been passed. There's one that's approved by the governor. You're well aware of that. Some of them have failed first House passage. So there's 4 of those bills that are listed that have been removed from the list that we were tracking of interest to the commission. And then finally, you see the section on support, our concern as written or opposition, as well as those that were neutral on are further in the report. But I do want to point out before I take any questions that on the last page of this report, we have categorized the bills by issue. This commission had given some direction that they wanted to see bills specifically that were pertinent to housing, for example, and you'll see those listed on the last page with links. So we will make sure, if you don't have them, make sure you have email copies of these so that you can click on those live links and go right to the bills of interest. Make particular attention that there are amendments that are active and in there, so it's sometimes you click on the bill and you don't necessarily notice that the bill's been amended, for those of you that aren't in Nellis all the time. But so I would point out that there are a lot of amendments floating in those as well. So you see them listed: housing, marijuana, water, substance abuse, the workers' comp and collective bargaining that we alluded to may have some impacts, and then PERS, the Public Employee Retirement System. So if you have questions, I'd be happy to take them, or you can take this home for some leisurely reading and we can handle those questions through your legislative committee.
Commissioner Herrmann, I have you signed in.
Okay. There's the light. I'm sure you're more up to date than I am on these water bills. Can you give me any last minute news?
On the water bills?
Especially 95, AB 95.
I'm sorry, which one?
AB 95.
AB 95? I do not have a ton of information on that one, but I can certainly get that information to you and do a summary and send that to the commissioners if that'd be helpful.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Unless Mr. Slaughter
Mr.
has-
Manager.
Just briefly, because I had got a heads up from Commissioner Herrmann on that issue, and I don't know much more than this, other than it does clarify, this AB 95 clarifies appropriations for, clarifies senior appropriations process for domestic wells. Our staff has reviewed it and believes that it should be something that we support.
Okay. Are you okay, Commissioner Herrmann? Is that okay?
Yeah.
No, I just wonder if there's anything else. That's.
I asked
No, I
her.
mean, do you have another, another question or
I got
another question
her
for the manager?
answer.
Okay,
That's-
all right, because if not, I'm gonna jump in. Talk to us about SB 398 real quickly if you can, or Mr. Liparelli or Mr. Manager. I'm not really sure that this pertains to us, and I know we've had some questions on it. I think we already have this ability. That's the existing law, BDR 20-1074. It is on page 22. Existing law authorizes a Board of County Commissioners of the government of an incorporated city to exercise powers necessary, blah, 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 blah.
I believe this might be the daily legislation. Is that the one? Skip Daily?
Is this Daley's or is this Ratty's?
I believe this is Senator Ratty's affordable housing bill.
Right.
And I'm reminding myself of all the details.
But it really, it doesn't talk about any fees. It just talks about separating those fees. Am I correct?
As I recall reading the bill, that was a very specific major point was if you collect those types of fees or from developers that go towards affordable housing, those funds have to be separated and accountable
Right, you
for
fenced them.
affordable housing.
Right. Okay. Okay, and don't we already have that ability? It's. It had to do with the city of Reno. This is not really a Washoe County bill. Okay, that's what I thought also. Okay. Commissioners, any other questions? This has been quite a wild legislative ride.
Mr. Chair, I just got a
Manager.
text from Jamie Rodriguez, who is obviously watching the meeting. She gave me some clarification on SB 398.
Okay, thank you.
This is a clarification of some powers that there were some discussions about whether it existed or not.
Right,
So that's more the point.
okay. Okay,
Certainly, if you need any additional information, let us know and we'll get you information.
okay. All right, Commissioners, I have no one else signed in. Okay, we are done with that. Mr. Manager, that moves us to item 18.
Item 18, we will have a need for closed session, so we will go through the next two items if we could, and then have a motion to go into recess for that
Okay.
purpose. So brings us to item 19, public comment.
Madam Clerk.
We have one person signed in. It's Kathy Brandhorst, but I don't see her in the audience for real this
I do not
time.
see her either. I believe she has left.
And that's all we had.
Okay. All right, so I will close public comment. Item 20, Commissioners and County Managers announcements. Mr. Manager, do you have any such?
I do have
items?
one, and I regret that I didn't make this earlier when at least one of these individuals was in the audience. Our 2019 Nevada Women's Fund Women of Achievement recipients. There are two within Washoe County. One is Amber Howell, our Director of Human Services, and Jolie Wicks, who is the Chief of the Juvenile Division at the DA's office.
Oh, well, wonderful. Thank you. Commissioners, I have no one signed in. Is there anything from other commissioners? Okay, so Mr. Liparelli, so I will close item 20. before we adjourn. So we're going to just recess, Mr. Liparelli? Is that what we're going to do?
No, Mr. Chairman, in order to, you don't have a closed session for Washoe County? Okay. In order to take.
We do have a closed session for Washoe County, or we do not? I thought we did. It's only TM?
My understanding is that we need one for both.
That's what the item says. It says negotiations with Washoe County and/or TMFPD.
Mr. Chairman, you took action as a fire commission to go into closed session. If you want to do that as the county commission, you need a motion under item 18 to go into closed session for the purposes of discussing labor negotiations under NRS 288.220.
Okay. All right. I will entertain a motion. I will second that. We have a motion and we have a second to go into closed session. Madam Clerk, is there any public comment?
No, sir.
Okay. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Commissioner Lucy,
Sorry,
are
I
you
didn't
still-
put it in.
Are you still on the phone, Commissioner Lucy?
Yeah, aye.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Herrmann, are you?
I'm lost.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, motion carries unanimously. Are we going to put it on the screen, Madam Clerk?
No,
Okay.
sir. Sorry.
Okay, all right. I just want to, okay, so,
Mr. Chairman, you'll be recessing
Correct.
this meeting and reconvening in a closed session upstairs.
okay, I call us into recess, and we will reconvene upstairs and then open the doors for our final comment.